The phone on Isabel Hamilton's desk had been ringing for 10 minutes straight. A shrill, incessant scream she didn't dare answer. She didn't need to. Her office door kept swinging open. "Ma'am, Mr. Wong has called. He's not renewing the contract for next quarter. Isabel, the investors are pulling all their ad sponsorships. They said they're initiating legal proceedings and want their logos off our trucks by end of day." Miss Hamilton, in less time than it took to drink a cup of coffee, half a dozen shell-shocked managers had crowded into her office, each one a harbinger of another severed partnership, another canceled contract. "All of you out." Isabel's voice was strained. She massaged her temples, the screen of her phone glowing with the video Sienna Shaw's account had just posted. A compilation of security footage. Every angle, every clip was from a camera she never knew existed. "Liam, you never trusted us at all, did you?" Her eyes, once bright with purpose, dulled. She considered, briefly, that Jason might have been lying, that he might have staged the whole attack. But Liam's silence in the face of the accusation had felt like a confession. Why hadn't he shown them this evidence from the start? If he knew all along it was a setup, why let them believe the worst? They had over a decade of history together. She couldn't believe it. He had been secretly filming them in their own home. A storm of emotions churned inside her. Was it disappointment in Jason? Resentment toward Liam? It was neither. The mountain of corporate disasters piling up had numbed her to all that. The real pain, the sharpest sting, came from the existence of the cameras themselves. "So, Liam, from the very beginning, you never believed in US, did you?" Her phone buzzed, vibrating against the polished wood of her desk. The painful reverie shattered. She almost declined the call, but the screen read, "Dad." With a moment's hesitation, she answered, "Isabel, what the hell are you doing?" David Hamilton's voice boomed through the speaker, raw with fury. "You told me Noel's appearance on that show was foolproof. Now the internet is tearing us apart. What is going on?" Isabel's lips trembled. "Dad, the videos. You actually believe that garbage?" he roared. "He's an ungrateful snake. What good could possibly come from him? Jason would never do something like that. Those videos are obviously deep fakes." Isabel froze. Of course. How had she not considered that? For Liam to hold on to this evidence for so long, only to release it at the most damaging moment. It proved how manipulative he was. She had almost fallen for his tricks again. "Dad, you're right," she said, her voice finding new strength. "What do we do now?" She had never dealt with a PR crisis of this magnitude. Her only solution had always been money, but take the profits from that Zenith Corp deal, David commanded. Buy up some trending topics. Start a counter-narrative. Push the deepfake story. Hard. "Dad, that money," she stammered, her face paling. "There's still $2 million left, isn't there? Use it, and pull another $1 million from the corporate accounts. I want $3 million dedicated to burying this story." Hearing her father's orders, Isabel bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. Finally, she broke. "Dad, I gave all the money to the show's producers." "What?" The shout was so loud it distorted the speaker. "Isabel, what kind of sister are you? $3 million, and you just handed it all over to some trashy reality show? Is this how you run a company?" Faced with the barrage, her eyes welled with tears. "Dad, I didn't mean to. The producer said he had other offers, and I—" Her words dissolved into a choked sob. On the other end of the line, David Hamilton felt a wave of dizziness, his vision blurring with rage. But seeing the vitriol being heaped upon his son online, he gritted his teeth. Divert the fund for the next 2 months of employee payroll. His voice was a low, vicious growl, his eyes fixed on the hateful comments about Jason. Divert payroll. Isabel's eyes shot open in horror. "Dad, we can't. Liam always said. He said you never, ever mess with people's livelihoods." "To hell with what he said." The name Liam was like gasoline on a fire. "They won't starve if they miss a couple of paychecks," he roared into the phone. "I'm telling you, Isabel, if Jason's reputation is ruined because of this, I will make Liam Lynn pay with his life." The raw fury in her father's voice sent a tremor through her entire body. Liam had taught her that integrity was the bedrock of a company. You always paid your people, even if you had to borrow the money to do it. It was how you earned their loyalty. She knew he was right, and yet her father. Hearing only silence, David's anger subsided slightly, replaced by cold resolve. "Just do it," he said, his voice tight. "I'll figure out the payroll situation. Don't worry, it might not even be the full 2 months." That small assurance was all Isabel needed. "Okay, Dad," she breathed, relieved. "I'll do it now." Hanging up, she immediately opened the company's accounts. She transferred the $3 million earmarked for salaries, added the $500,000 she had in her personal expense account, and began making calls to PR firms and back-channel media contacts. Meanwhile, David Hamilton hung up and stared at his phone with venomous eyes. He opened his contacts, his thumb hovering over a name before pressing down. The call connected almost instantly. Before David could speak, a smooth, calm voice preempted him. David, I've been expecting your call." A wave of relief washed over David, but it was quickly subsumed by his anger. "Cut the crap, Silas. I have one question for you. Are you going to handle this or not?" "What? You've already burned through all the money I've funneled to your family over the years. That was barely enough to find my son." David snapped. "Don't change the subject. You're the one who told me to adopt that boy in the first place. If you don't take care of this now, don't blame me if I decide to go scorched earth." Always so dramatic, David. Silas Crane's voice was infuriatingly calm. He took a leisurely sip of tea. "Relax. The family has already been in touch with me. Within 3 days, he will disappear from this world." The line went dead. David slowly lowered the phone, his breathing evening out. It was Silas who had called him all those years ago when Jason went missing, when his wife, Sandra, was nearly mad with grief. Silas had told him where to find a child to adopt. And now, Silas was saying the family had given him the same order. He couldn't begin to imagine who Liam's biological parents were, to be so heartless. But that wasn't his problem. His only job was to protect his precious son, Jason, to be a good father. As for that animal, Liam, he would make sure the boy knelt before Jason and begged for forgiveness before he died. Back on the island, Liam had casually taken the fishing rod from Sienna's hands and was now sitting peacefully at the water's edge. Seeing this, Noelle, who had been stripped of her phone, was certain it was all an act. She pointed a trembling finger at him. "Don't think you can fool me by tapping a few buttons on a phone. I see right through your little performance." Her face was a mask of smug triumph. Her eyes locked on him as if waiting for him to break. "TSK." Liam frowned, looking at her with pure annoyance. "Could you keep it down? You're scaring away the fish." She hadn't expected him to snap at her. The sudden ferocity in his expression stunned her into silence. Nearby, Sienna watched Liam with a blank look. "Seriously, dude? You're really into fishing right now?" But the thought only lasted a second before it morphed into a realization. Wait, he likes to fish. This was valuable intel. She made a mental note. She should suggest to Cassandra that she get him a top-of-the-line fishing setup. The atmosphere grew thick and strange. Noelle swallowed hard, trying to recover from the shock of Liam's outburst. "He thinks he can scare me? Does he really think I'm a 3-year-old, right? Keep pretending," she sneered, her voice a little weaker but still dripping with contempt. Her voice broke Sienna from her strategic planning. The idol's patience snapped. Turning to the camera, she blinked her wide, innocent eyes. "Wow, are you allowed to be so aggressive? Do you have a sponsorship from the ASPCA or something?" Sienna tilted her head, her expression a perfect mix of manufactured concern and curiosity. "If you want to know if it's real, why don't you just borrow a phone and look for yourself?" She paused for effect. "Oh, wait, don't tell me. You're scared to look, aren't you?" She hugged her giant teddy bear, the mockery in her doe-eyed gaze unmistakable. Noelle, already seething, exploded. "Who says I'm scared to look?" She spun around and glared at the cameraman. "You, give me your phone." The cameraman flinched and reluctantly handed it over. As Noelle took the phone, a pit formed in her stomach. She glanced nervously at Sienna, then at Liam, who was still intently focused on his fishing line. "Wait, why aren't they stopping me? Could it be? He really has proof." Panic began to set in. Her hand trembled as she typed Sienna's username into the search bar. When the latest post loaded, with its torrent of videos and screenshots, Noelle's face went white. This is impossible," she muttered, her fingers flying across the screen, swiping through video after video. The chat comments scrolled past in a blur, each one a nail in her coffin. Her face turned the color of ash. "No, you really had it?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with disbelief. It was clear she was on the verge of a complete breakdown. Her outburst sent the live-stream chat into a frenzy. So Noelle was lying the whole time? LMO never seen someone get owned this hard. Straight to the receipts. I'm dead. How are the Hamiltons going to spin this one? Claim the vids are deepfakes? Ha ha. How about a solution for the Hamiltons? Go to Flint, Michigan and drink a gallon of tap water. If you do that, I'll pretend I never saw these videos. I second this motion. +1. On the beach, Sienna watched Noelle's horrified expression and pouted. You're being so mean. She scooted closer to Liam, a sly glint in her eye, though her voice was pure performance. Brother Liam, she's so scary. You don't think she's going to hit me, do you? Liam, still focused on his fishing, said nothing. The world swam before Noelle's eyes. She almost stumbled. Composing herself with a monumental effort, she stared at Liam, her scalp prickling. You installed cameras in the house. Liam, how could you be so manipulative? The accusation was so absurd that even Sienna struggled to maintain her composure. She had seen shameless people before, but this was a whole new level. She was about to fire back, but then she saw the utter calm on Liam's face. The anger in her eyes was replaced by surprise. Brother Liam, you can tolerate this? Without even looking up, Liam spoke loud enough for the mics to catch. Why would you waste your time on her? Just because someone has a mouth doesn't mean they have a brain. Hiss. Sienna's eyes lit up. That was the idol she'd chosen. Completely unshakable. He was right. Arguing with Noel Hamilton would just be lowering himself to her level. She nodded in admiration. Brother Liam is right. Being completely ignored by them both, Noel suddenly felt like a clown. The midday sun grew stronger, beating down on her head. The glare from the camera lenses was blinding. In the distance, she could see the other contestants watching the drama unfold. The combination of the heat, the noise, the staring. A ringing started in her ears. Her face was now deathly pale, a ghastly white that even her expensive makeup couldn't hide. Her features twisted into a grotesque mask of despair. She had never imagined this. As someone who lived and breathed the entertainment industry, she knew the power of public opinion. Was her dream of stardom over just like that? It was over. Everything was over. The world went black. Her body swayed, and then she collapsed onto the beach, sending up a small puff of sand. The nearest cameraman rushed forward. Miss Hamilton, are you okay? Somebody call an ambulance. The afternoon's leisure time soon ended. Liam had managed to catch a sea bass. Sienna, too agitated to focus, came up empty-handed. Not that she cared about fishing. As soon as filming wrapped, she ran back to the hotel and started researching high-end fishing gear online. Liam, as usual, went to Cassandra's suite. The meal was already laid out. Cassandra was sitting on the sofa, casually scrolling through her phone. Seeing him enter, she raised an eyebrow, her eyes filled with admiration. Well done. Liam sat down beside her calmly. I just posted a few videos. At his nonchalant tone, Cassandra's expression flickered with curiosity. I have to admit, I didn't expect you to have surveillance footage prepared in advance. Liam made a small sound of dismissal. In this day and age, you can only be sure of who your mother is. Everything else is a question mark. He didn't have the next part. And back then, I didn't even know who my mother was. But Cassandra's eyes shifted, her gaze locking onto him. So, she said, her voice laced with something that sounded like anticipation. Do you trust me? The moment the words left her lips, Liam felt his entire body tense. He looked at Cassandra. Beneath this surface-level anticipation, he saw a test. A test of his answer, a test of his heart. There was no doubt in his mind that if he denied her now, he wouldn't be walking out of this room. For the sake of his own self-preservation, even if it was a lie, he had to say it. Of course. Clearly, the answer didn't satisfy her. She tilted her head, shifting closer to him on the sofa. Leaning forward, she brought her face level with his, a chill entering her gaze as it bored into him. Of course, what? Say it all. She wanted to hear the whole thing. Liam took a silent, deep breath and forced the words out. Of course I trust you. Even though it was the expected answer, it sent a jolt of pleasure through Cassandra. An irrepressible joy bubbled up inside her. She cast a satisfied glance at Liam and then stood up. Come on, let's eat. Liam let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He was starving. He stood and took his seat at the dining table. After all these days, he'd grown accustomed to starting without her, so he picked up his fork and knife immediately. He had just taken 2 bites when Cassandra's cool voice broke the silence. I've already had my people release the security footage of you beating up Jason Hamilton. Her tone was casual, but it held a faint desire for praise. Her eyes were fixed on him, unreadable. Liam's hand paused midair. He knew his role. Thank you for your help, Miss Thorne. Seeing none of the gratitude or excitement she expected, Cassandra narrowed her eyes, a flicker of displeasure in them. The Hamiltons have already spent a fortune trying to spread a narrative that your videos are deepfakes. She reminded him coolly. Go on. Ask me to help you. That was the subtext, the hope lingering in her heart. But her tone confused Liam. Logically, she should have said it with a gloating, I told you so air, but it sounded more like she was fishing for a specific response. Liam frowned. Whatever her game was, he had only one answer. Let them. His reply threw Cassandra for a loop. She was the type who always retaliated, who would financially ruin the entire family of anyone who crossed her. After all this time, she thought Liam would be the same. She never expected him to back off at such a critical moment. It wasn't his style, and it wasn't the outcome she'd been hoping for. If you don't salt the earth, your enemies will always grow back. In that instant, Cassandra felt a pang of disappointment. The man was so indecisive. She took a sip of tea. It seems I overestimated you, she said, her voice cold. Overestimated? Liam looked up from his plate, surprised. Cassandra didn't answer, turning her attention to the exquisite food before her. For some reason, that one small exchange had left a bitter taste in her mouth. This man, apart from his exceptional looks and physique, was no different from any other. The thought left her feeling bored. But Liam's next words made her reevaluate him completely. Miss Thorne, are you misunderstanding something? Liam said, unconcerned. Miss Thorne, are you misunderstanding something? Liam said, unconcerned. I've already bled them dry. The only money they could possibly have now is from diverting employee payroll. A company like that is already dead. It's just a matter of time. Why would I waste my energy chasing a corpse? He scoffed. Besides, that payroll money is what, $3 million maybe? Thanks to Sienna, my public profile is so high right now, I could probably run for office. That amount of money wouldn't even cover my legal fees for a defamation suit. Did she really think he hadn't considered these things when he decided to release the videos? The most difficult problem he faced right now was how to escape her. And compared to Cassandra Thorne, what were the Hamiltons? A bunch of pathetic gnats. He knew them so well that if they squatted down to take a shit, he wouldn't even have to ask to know if it was solid or liquid. Ugh, he was eating. He shook the thought from his head, twirled some cheese on his pasta, and took a large bite. He was oblivious to the fact that his words had ignited a brilliant spark in Cassandra's eyes. She knew it. Her instincts were never wrong. She stared, utterly transfixed, at Liam devouring his pasta, an endless smile spreading across her face, as radiant as 1,000 diamonds. Liam's logic was flawless. A scorched earth campaign might force an enemy into a final, desperate battle, but letting them self-destruct? That was a fate even God couldn't save them from. He hadn't spent a single dime, yet he had pushed the Hamilton family onto a dead-end road with no escape. That was a strategy worthy of her notice. It seemed she had underestimated him after all. A soft light shimmered in Cassandra's cold eyes, and with every flicker, threads of emotion began to weave themselves together, threatening to pull Liam into their depths. Her intense stare was making his skin crawl. He swallowed a mouthful of pasta and glanced at her untouched plate. He knew the drill. I'll eat quickly, then I'll feed you. He picked up his pace. No rush, Cassandra purred, her lips curling into a smile. Her voice softened. What you said is true. The money isn't much. But wouldn't it be better to stop them from spreading the rumor in the first place? Liam's mouth was full. Let him say whatever they want, he mumbled. I'm not the one who cares about my reputation. Watching him eat with such gusto, his cheeks puffed out, his words muffled, Cassandra suddenly found him adorable. She didn't press him further. Instead, she picked up her phone and sent a voice message to Evelyn Reed, her tone back to its usual imperious chill. Find out who took the Hamiltons' PR contract, then buy out their biggest competitor. Also, inform every major platform that no mention of forged or deep-faked videos is to appear on any trending topic list. Hearing her commands, Liam paused his eating. He swallowed the meat in his mouth, looking at her with genuine surprise. You have that kind of money to throw around? Why not just give it to me as a bonus? Why waste it on them? I really don't care about this stuff. Putting down her phone, Cassandra regarded him with a cool, appraising look. Then, she let out a cold laugh. But I care. Her tone was utterly tyrannical, an order that could not be refused. Then came the second part, a declaration of insane possessiveness. You are mine, and I will not allow anyone to slander you in my presence. She stared at him, her expression lofty and cold as ice, but her eyes burned with an endless, feverish heat. The intensity of her gaze made Liam's scalp tingle. Ever since he'd learned of her feelings for him, he had forced himself to comply with her demands. The past few days of relative freedom had given him a false sense of security. He had almost forgotten. She was a complete lunatic. His silence, however, only seemed to excite Cassandra more. This was how he should be, afraid of no one, yet bowing his head only to her. Forcing down the wild joy rising in her chest, Cassandra stared straight at Liam, her red lips parting slightly. As for rewarding you, of course, but I've helped you so much already. Don't you think you should be thinking about how you're going to please me? Liam was momentarily speechless. Weren't the sleepless, frenzied nights enough? It was the middle of the day, and she wanted to continue? Besides, he had never asked for this help. Cassandra Thorne had forced it upon him. Of course, he knew he couldn't say that out loud. Cassandra's feelings for him were already escalating exponentially. Saying something like that would be like throwing gasoline on the fire of his escape plan. Facing her ardent gaze, Liam's eyes darkened. Is there anything you like? He asked softly. He kept his head down, avoiding her gaze. His voice was light, but his words struck a chord deep in Cassandra's heart. Things I like. Cassandra repeated the words in her mind, her eyes falling on Liam. The answer was obvious. Liam cleared his throat. I mean, like hobbies, interests. His eyes scanned the room, finally landing on the desk behind her. Like those roses. I notice you have them all over your townhouse and in your office at Zenith Tower. From that, I gather you like roses. He was analyzing her with such cool detachment, completely oblivious to the heat intensifying in her gaze. He even noticed such small details. It seems my little pet's feelings for me are not so ordinary. She remembered how he was practically her prisoner when he first arrived at her estate. To have paid attention to such things, even under those circumstances. So, you were observing me from the very beginning. So what I mean is, what are your hobbies? That way I can cater to your tastes. Liam continued to explain, not seeing the faint smile that had appeared on Cassandra's lips. Such a dishonest man. As she watched him, his voice began to fade into the background, a mere hum in her ears. The only thing in her field of vision was his face. Staring at him, Cassandra felt a profound sense of being seen, of being valued by someone she considered her equal. The feeling was intoxicating. In that moment, she wanted that feeling to last forever. She wanted him by her side, always accompanying her, submitting to her, and not, she realized, always as a pet. Miss Thorne, Liam's voice broke through her reverie. He had noticed her staring into space. He knew he couldn't let her mind wander for too long. There was no telling what kind of torturous idea she might come up with. Cassandra's thoughts snapped back to the present. She wasn't angry at the interruption. I don't like anything, she said coldly. Liam blinked. Nothing you're particularly fond of? I am now. She didn't say the words, merely watching him in silence. Seeing that she wasn't going to answer, Liam frowned, but then a thought occurred to him. Right, someone in your position. Once you have a hobby, it could become a weakness for others to exploit. He murmured the thought aloud, suddenly feeling stuck. But Cassandra's eyes lit up. He was right. Is he? Feeling sorry for me. An unexpected warmth bloomed in her chest. You decide, she said. As long as it's from you, anything is fine. This time, it was Liam's turn to be surprised. She was this easy to placate? Just to be safe, he asked, so, any gift is okay, right? Cassandra was about to nod when an image flashed in her mind. The Instagram post from Factory Guy's Girl. A jar filled with 520 folded paper stars, with a tag bearing their names. Instantly, her expression hardened. Anything, she said, her voice dropping, except folded paper stars. She was not a substitute. To be given a gift that had once been given to another woman was a profound insult. She could perfectly imagine the anticipation and excitement Liam must have felt while folding those tacky little stars. 520 of them, each one folded by his own hands, the same motion repeated over and over. The thought sent a blaze of fury through her. Her arm, resting on the table, began to tremble, causing the entire table to vibrate. Though he hadn't noticed the change in her expression, her words made Liam pause. Oh, you mean that, he said, a distant look in his eyes. That was a long, long time ago. It wasn't Jessica he was thinking about, but his younger self. To Cassandra, however, his faraway gaze looked like he was pining for a lost love. You're still thinking about her, even now? For the first time, Cassandra felt a genuine sense of crisis. This wasn't just anger, it was fear. The fear that even if she possessed his body, she might never truly have his heart. The emotion was so intense, it bordered on panic. I can never let him leave. Her powerful need for control and dependency allowed her to suppress the wave of insecurity. Her voice was hoarse when she spoke. If you could do it over again, would you still give him to her? She stared at him, waiting for the answer she so desperately wanted to hear. But Liam's reply disappointed her. He answered almost without thinking. Probably yes. The words ignited Cassandra's rage completely. Perhaps their recent truces had made her forget his true nature. How dare he say that to her face? Yes. Shock, fury, disbelief, the emotions crashed over her. For a moment, she felt the last thread of her sanity about to snap. Say that again, she said, her voice a low growl, each word enunciated with chilling precision. She was a predator, coiled and ready to strike. The mention of the past had pulled Liam deep into his memories. He didn't answer her directly. Instead, he said, with perfect rationality, Miss Thorne, your question is a moot point. His calm response caught the enraged Cassandra off guard. What do you mean, she demanded. Exactly what I said. It's a meaningless question. Liam explained his point of view with unnerving clarity. Let's assume it's a valid hypothetical. I think you have to consider it two ways. First, if I were to go back in time with my current memories, I would obviously do everything possible to avoid the mistakes of this life. I'd use my experience to start over. In that case, the answer is no. Second, if I went back without my memories, then my predetermined fate would unfold as it did before. I would still get lost, still be adopted by the Hamiltons, still meet Jessica, and I would still meet you. That's not something that can be changed by a simple yes or no from the man I am today. He paused, then looked directly at the stunned Cassandra. I don't believe I'd ever go back with my memories. The probability of that is practically zero. Therefore, my initial answer, and my current one, will always be yes. Although he was speaking in the first person, his tone was so flat he sounded like a detached observer narrating a case study. Listening to his dispassionate analysis, Cassandra's fury began to dissipate. As rationality returned, she realized Liam's answer was logically sound. It was she who had been too impulsive. To think she could lose her composure over a single sentence from him. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her usually arrogant features. To cover her embarrassment, she resorted to sarcasm. So, what if it's a moot point? I just never thought you'd consider something that wastes so much time and energy a real gift. At that, Liam suddenly smiled. To you, it might seem like a useless gift. But to me, the object was never the important part. It was the meaning. Yes, 520 of them, Cassandra retorted, not even noticing the sour, jealous edge to her voice. What a profound meaning of love. Liam's eyes flickered, then darkened slightly. You're wrong. To me now, it's not about love. He lifted his head, his gaze drifting past her to the floor-to-ceiling window, where the midday sun burned brightly. For me, he said slowly, those gifts, their meaning, they represent my youth. My prime, a time of youthful ignorance. Cassandra was, without a doubt, stunned. She had never expected Liam to be so clear-sighted. In that instant, she felt as if he was glowing. He possessed a psychological strength she hadn't anticipated. His image suddenly seemed taller, his inherent coolness forming a tangible barrier between them, separating them. After all this time together, she suddenly realized she might have never touched his heart at all. Back then, I was driven by a certain youthful passion, he continued, his gaze still fixed on the sun outside. My pursuit of Jessica, the flowers, the money transfers. He let out a soft laugh, a sound of someone who had seen through it all. That was all driven by my own naivete. I can't go back and change it, but I accept my past. His gaze met hers, because whether I was brilliant or mediocre, that was still me. Love yourself before you can love anyone else. The day he left the Hamiltons, he had made a decision. For the rest of his life, he would live only for himself. Everything would come from the heart. His voice faded, and silence fell over the room. Cassandra had never had a conversation like this before. His calm recitation of his past somehow made her even more captivated. He had something she didn't, and the more she realized she didn't have it, the more desperately she wanted it. She didn't know what it was, but the feeling made the possessiveness in her chest swell to an unbearable degree. No, she wouldn't allow him to have a self. A pet should know its place. But when her eyes landed on Liam again, she felt an inexplicable urge to respect him. The feeling terrified her. She bit her lip, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. Just then, Liam turned to face her, his voice serious. So, Miss Thorne, there's only one thing I want to do now. His voice was resolute. I want to be in control of my own life. It was part warning, part heartfelt confession from a man lost in memory. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that upon hearing those words, Cassandra suddenly laughed. She stared straight at him, her eyes alight with excitement. You're mistaken, she said, her voice a triumphant purr. The person who controls your life must be me. Her declaration left Liam speechless. Memories of the past few weeks came flooding back. He sighed. In that case, Miss Thorne, let me choose the gift. But you'll have to give me time to prepare it. Oomph. Cassandra nodded slightly, pleased with his submission. She picked up her phone, forwarded Evelyn Reed's contact info to him, and said, Tell Evelyn whatever you need. She'll arrange it for you. Seeing the notification pop up on his phone, Liam's mouth twitched. Ma'am, who asked someone else to arrange a gift for them? Cassandra paused, phone in hand. He had a point. So, he wants to prepare it for me himself? A gift filled with his own thought and effort? Instantly, Cassandra's eyes lit up. She looked at him with burning anticipation. Then I'll be waiting for your grand gift. Liam smiled. Don't worry. This is a gift you've definitely never seen before. He gestured toward the dining table. So, shall I feed you? Now that she mentioned it, Cassandra did feel a bit hungry. She nodded. As Liam prepared her plate, she asked, "What time does filming start this afternoon?" The producer said he wants to let the online drama simmer for a bit. "They're pushing the afternoon session back 3 hours," Liam explained, glancing at the time. 4 o'clock, I think." "I see." Cassandra watched him. Just like before, Liam held one hand under the plate to catch any spills while using the other to feed her, as if she were a child. Her gaze deepened. As she swallowed a bite of food, she said slowly, "Then you can help me with some documents during the downtime." For Liam, working alongside her had become routine. He nodded, focusing on placing a piece of chicken on her fork. After the meal, Evelyn Reed and her team came to clear the table. Cassandra rested for only 10 minutes before moving to her desk. Liam, knowing the drill, followed and sat in the chair to her right. He expected the usual boring stacks of contracts, but instead Cassandra tossed several thick, sealed folders in front of him. "You'll be handling these today," she commanded. Liam nodded dutifully, but as his eyes fell on the unopened folders and the titles printed on them, he froze. "Are these primary investment portfolios?" he asked, looking at her in shock. Any one of these deals was large enough to sustain a small company for 3 years. His gobsmacked reaction only intensified Cassandra's desire to tease him. A smirk played on her lips. She didn't answer his question. Instead, she reached down and unlocked a drawer he'd never seen open before. From inside, she produced an exquisitely wrapped red box. She opened it. The object inside made Liam's jaw drop. "You can use this to approve them." Liam was completely stunned. He swallowed hard. "If I'm not mistaken," he said carefully, "is that your company's corporate seal?" Pleased with his reaction, Cassandra squinted playfully, picking up the seal and twirling it in her fingers. Her eyes flicked toward him. "This isn't just any seal," she purred. "This little thing has the power to make decisions on behalf of the entire Thorne family. I call it the Rose Seal." Liam furrowed his brow. The name sounded a bit tacky, but the fact that Cassandra would show him something so important was genuinely shocking. "You should probably put that away," Liam said honestly, "before I get any greedy ideas." His honesty just made her laugh. "Oh, would you?" Facing her cold, challenging gaze, Liam crossed his arms and leaned back casually in his chair. "I can't say for sure. I never know what I'm going to do next." His frankness, in her eyes, was like a child's playful boast. No one with real ambition would ever reveal their true thoughts so openly. "He really does trust me." With a grand gesture, Cassandra casually tossed the seal onto the desk in front of him. "Get started," she said, a ghost of a smile on her lips. As much as he didn't want to do this, Cassandra had given an order. He thought for a moment, but instead of picking up the seal, he met her gaze. "Miss Thorne, before I begin, there's something I need to discuss with you." This was the second time he had proactively made a request of her. A strange light flickered in Cassandra's eyes. There was curiosity, but more than that, there was the feeling of being needed. She loved that feeling, especially when the one depending on her was the pet she had gone to such great lengths to train. She rested her chin on her pale hand, her phoenix eyes narrowing as she studied him. "Let's hear it." Liam cleared his throat, his gaze shifting away slightly. "The show ends in 2 days. On the 7th day, we're back on the mainland. Could you give me the free time between filming for these next couple of days?" Fearing an immediate rejection, he quickly added, "It's related to your gift." He needed time to prepare? Cassandra's eyebrows rose slightly. She tapped her fingers on the desk, then answered without a hint of hesitation, her voice crisp and cold. "Approved." Leaving Cassandra's suite, Liam let out a long sigh of relief. He wasn't one to break his word. Since he'd promised a gift, he would see it through. No matter what, Cassandra had helped him this time, whether he'd asked for it or not. Setting aside all the past torment, it was only fair to return the favor. Besides, if she was happy, she might just rain some more cash on him. No matter how he sliced it, he came out ahead. Without hesitation, he went downstairs and borrowed a phone from a production assistant before filming began. He called Brandon Zhang. As soon as the line connected, Liam got straight to the point. "Brandon, I need to talk to you about something. I have an emergency on the 6th night and can't make the bonfire party." "What?" Brandon yelped, nearly falling out of his chair. "Our contract is for 7 days, man. You can't just bail halfway through. You want me to sue you?" Liam laughed at the producer's booming voice. "Come on, Brandon, don't try to scare me. You know exactly how much buzz I've brought to this show. You made a fortune you must have broken even ages ago. And that wasn't even counting the money they had jointly squeezed out of the Hamiltons." Liam didn't say it, but the implication was clear. On the other end, Brandon laughed too. "Broken even? Buddy, We've made 10 times our projected revenue. He wasn't going to lie to Liam. He'd seen Liam's shrewdness firsthand. After this show, Liam was going to be a household name. This had far exceeded Brandon's wildest dreams. His top priority now was staying on good terms with Liam. If he couldn't keep a connection like this, he was a failure as a producer. For someone this valuable, bending the rules was a no-brainer. I can agree to it, Brandon said, shifting his tone, but what do I do about the final shot in the promos? The one with you and Sienna watching the sunset. Without a second thought, Liam replied, get a stand-in. Brandon's mouth twitched. Dude, this is a live stream. We can't just Photoshop a body double in later. You can find a model, light him from behind, and shoot a silhouette, can't you? That could work, Brandon mused, but what about Sienna? Don't worry. I'll handle her. With that, Brandon had no more objections. All right, it's a deal. We'll have Riley do an opening dance number to kick things off. As Brandon rambled on, Liam narrowed his eyes and asked, Hey, Brandon, do you know if there are any horses near this island? Horses? Brandon paused, racking his brain. Yeah, there are. It's a half-hour boat ride from here. An island called Horizon Island. They've got an equestrian club over there, though I've never been. Why, man? You planning on going for a ride? Don't you worry about it, Liam said with a chuckle. Oh, and one more thing. I need you to help me get a few things. For the next 2 days, the live stream continued as normal. The on-screen couple of Liam and Sienna became an internet sensation, with clips of their interactions going viral. The viewers were obsessed. Meanwhile, the Hamilton family became a national laughingstock. Noelle, after waking up from her fainting spell to a flood of hateful comments on all her social media, suffered a mental breakdown and left the island to recuperate at home. Somehow, the story of the Hamiltons paying for her spot on the show leaked. It wasn't the paying that was the issue. It was that they had paid to be publicly humiliated. Hamilton Industries became a pariah in the business world. Competitors swooped in, offering lower rates and poaching all their clients. Isabel's so-called friends all stopped answering her calls. Inside the company, savvy employees who saw the writing on the wall tried to resign, only to be told their final paychecks will be delayed by 3 months. The news spread like wildfire, and panic set in. In just 2 days, the multi-million-dollar Hamilton empire had crumbled. Terrified of being mobbed by angry employees, Isabel hid at home, refusing to go to the office or answer her phone. Jason's face, from the leaked video, had become a viral meme. He didn't dare leave the house. He thought he had finally escaped his miserable past, but just as he was settling into his role as a wealthy heir, the family fortune evaporated. Now he couldn't even afford to sue Liam for defamation. He sat on the sofa, hugging his knees to his chest like a frightened child. Looking at his son's devastated face, David Hamilton's heart ached. Jason, don't be afraid, he comforted him. Dad has already asked for help. Just wait a little longer. Liam is going to be finished very soon. On the morning of the 6th day, Ma'am, Liam took a boat to Horizon Island first thing this morning. Evelyn Reed rushed into the room, her report breathless. She kept her head bowed, not daring to look at Cassandra. This was major news. If Liam had made a run for it, she would be the one to suffer the consequences. As she stood there trembling, Cassandra's cold voice cut through the silence. Did he say what he was doing there? Evelyn shuddered. I'm not sure, she said quickly. He was on a boat arranged by the production crew, so I assumed it was for the show. But then I saw Miss Riley having breakfast downstairs. It was her mistake. She never imagined Liam would conspire with the production crew to escape. It looked like the show wouldn't survive to see another day. Evelyn silently wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead. To her shock, Cassandra's reply was eerily calm. Let him go. What? Evelyn looked up, bewildered, only to see a faint smile playing on Cassandra's lips. She was dumbfounded. Had she gone mad from anger? Or had she already lost interest in Liam? Just a couple of days ago, the two were inseparable, poring over documents together. Evelyn had even walked in on Liam, carefully feeding Cassandra dessert. Had the fiery passion burned out so quickly? As Evelyn floundered, the door to the suite flew open and Riley Thorne bounced in, a wide grin on her face. Sis, this is for you. She skipped over to Cassandra and opened her hand, revealing a crumpled ball of paper. She winked. Brother Liam specifically asked me to give this to you, and I didn't even peek. Whether she was telling the truth or not, the words Brother Liam and specifically asked made Cassandra's eyes flash. She didn't speak, simply plucked the paper ball from her sister's hand and unfolded it. 5 p.m., Horizon Island dock. Wear pants. Huh, this man is interesting. Reading the parenthetical, an unconscious smile lifted the corners of Cassandra's mouth. Seeing her sister's expression change, Riley blinked curiously and craned her neck. Sis, what does it say? Cassandra swiftly crumpled the note again, crossing one leg over the other. Nothing, she said coolly. It was a clear evasion. And since when did her sister bother explaining anything to her? This only fueled Riley's curiosity. Come on, let me see. Look how good I was. Brother Liam told me not to peek, and I really didn't. She grabbed Cassandra's knee and began to shake it, whining playfully. The shaking was starting to annoy Cassandra. A dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. She raised her hand and held up 3 fingers, her gaze a dark warning. Riley's heart dropped. She knew what that meant. She immediately let go, a sheepish grin on her face. Okay, my dear sister, you two have fun. I have something to do. I'll just go now. Riley fled the room. Once the door was closed, Cassandra rolled the note between her fingers and looked at Evelyn. Book out all of Horizon Island. Shut it down for the night. Yes, ma'am. Evelyn responded instantly, but then hesitated. Should I take a team to the island now and bring him back? Unnecessary, Cassandra said coldly. Have the yacht ready. Take me to the island at 4:30. Hiss. So the boss wanted to spend the night alone with Liam on the island? Good Lord, these two were wild. But if they were alone, and Liam tried something, the thought made her swallow hard. Ma'am, if the island is closed, should I arrange for a security detail to be on alert? Cassandra understood her meaning. Position a few men in the shadows, she commanded. Evelyn breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, ma'am. I'll see to it at once. At 4:30 p.m. sharp, Cassandra boarded her private yacht. At precisely 5 p.m., it docked at Horizon Island. The island, a popular and affordable tourist destination, was a jewel in the ocean. Lush green vegetation covered its rolling hills, bordered by soft, white sand beaches. In the distance, seabirds circled high above the peaks. As Cassandra stepped out of her suite, her eyes immediately found Liam, standing at the end of the dock. To her surprise, he was holding the reins of 2 magnificent white horses. He had changed into a simple, flowing black shirt. The horses, with their sleek builds and elegant lines, stood beside him, perfectly framed by the mountains and the turquoise sea. Under the vast blue sky, it was a scene straight out of a dream. The sight was breathtaking. Cassandra opened a black parasol and stepped off the yacht, walking toward him. As she drew closer, Liam's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, taking in the sight of her long legs and the stunning figure revealed by her tight-fitting outfit. He smiled. You're punctual, Miss Thorne. 5 o'clock. Not a minute late. Cassandra raised an eyebrow, her gaze sweeping over his attire before returning to his face. A smirk formed on her lips. It seems we had the same idea. His simple black shirt, her tight black pants and top. He caught her meaning and felt his mouth twitch. He watched as she circled the 2 horses, her expression one of cool appraisal. The back of her top was a series of crisscrossing black straps, revealing the pale, smooth skin of her back all the way down to her impossibly narrow waist. Below there were 2 long, slender legs that seemed to go on forever. The sight sent a surge of heat through him. He took several deep breaths to calm himself. After her inspection, Cassandra frowned at him, clearly unimpressed. This is your gift. We're just getting started, Liam replied, his composure regained. He held out one of the reins. You do know how to ride, don't you, Miss Thorne? Cassandra had no idea what game he was playing, but the opening move had certainly piqued her interest. She arched an eyebrow. I've had some training in equestrian arts, she said coolly. Then let's not waste any time. Liam handed her the reins. In one fluid motion, he mounted his horse. If you please, Miss Thorne. Cassandra's eyes narrowed. Then, with a grace that was all her own, she swung herself onto her horse. And now, she asked. And now, Liam's eyes gleamed. He gestured with his chin toward the sun, which was beginning its slow descent toward the horizon. A confident, brilliant smile lit up his face. Miss Thorne, let's have a race. To the top of that peak before the sun sets. If you win, I'll stop thinking about escaping. I will willingly be your pet for the rest of my life. Escape? You still dare to dream of escaping? Cassandra's eyes narrowed, her expression turning to ice. But Liam gave her no chance to speak. With a sharp cry, he spurred his horse forward, the white steed launching like an arrow from a bow, charging toward the setting sun at the mountain's peak. Damn him! Was this his plan all along? To use this as a chance to get away? Watching him gallop away, Cassandra bit her lip so hard she tasted blood, a detail she was completely unaware of. Her eyes burned with a murderous light. Very well, Liam, you're testing my limits. But you'd better remember your own words. You're the one who said it. Her gaze locked onto his retreating back. She leaned forward, pressing her body low against the horse, pulling the reins tight and digging her heels into its sides. Yeah, she yelled, her voice a sharp command. The horse reared up with a thunderous neigh, then shot forward, its hooves tearing across the sand like a storm. On the golden beach, the two white horses were a blur of motion, their tails streaming in the wind, their manes glowing in the sunlight. One chased the other, a high-speed duel against the backdrop of the crashing waves and the setting sun. It was a clash of speed and passion. Liam, who had the head start, sensed Cassandra closing in fast. He kept his body low, catching a glimpse of her in his peripheral vision and raising an eyebrow in surprise. He'd inspected the horses beforehand. They were evenly matched in speed. For her to catch up to him despite his lead, this woman was no amateur. A small smile played on his lips as he urged his horse faster. At the summit, where the world seemed to fall away into peace and tranquility, they crossed the finish line at the edge of the cliff almost simultaneously, just as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon. Whoa! Liam pulled back sharply on the reins, his horse rearing up before coming to a perfect halt. He looked over at Cassandra, who had stopped beside him. He grinned. "Looks like a draw, Miss Thorne." Whether it was a draw or not was irrelevant to Cassandra. She kept a tight grip on her reins, her horse standing proudly next to his. "Did you really think I came here alone?" she asked, her voice dripping with ice. He was still thinking about escape, even now. If she dared to accept his invitation, did he really think she wouldn't come prepared? Her voice was thick with anger, a fact Liam did not miss. He, however, remained unbothered. He glanced at the darkening sky and said something completely out of the blue. "Miss Thorne, how did you feel just now during the race?" His voice was calm, the question so jarringly off-topic that it left Cassandra momentarily speechless. She stared at him silent. She didn't know how to answer or what kind of game he was playing. Seeing her silence, Liam smiled. He looked at her, sitting beside him on horseback, and his voice was gentle. "Miss Thorne, that is my gift to you." His voice was soft, but every word carried clearly to her on the sea breeze, mingling with the crash of the waves below. Cassandra froze, looking at him in astonishment. "While you were riding just now, you must have felt it," he said, gesturing back toward the path they had just raced. His voice was now laced with an incredible tenderness. "That feeling, that passion, that freedom, that is my gift." His words landed, one by one, in her ears. She was stunned. So all that talk about a wager, it was just to make me give it my all. Thinking back to the race, to the feeling of the wind and the raw speed, she had to admit her mood had lifted. The tension that was perpetually coiled in her shoulders had released somewhere along that beach. It was an experience unlike any other. But the entire premise revolved around him. She stared at Liam, then pulled her horse up taller, her posture imperious. "No, Liam, you're wrong," she said with a cold laugh. "What you want is freedom. What I want is to win you." She would use any means necessary. She didn't care if those means were dirty. Liam glanced at her from the corner of his eye, but didn't rush to speak. Seeing his silence, and assuming she had bested him, Cassandra's mood instantly improved. She looked at him with a mocking expression. "I thought you were preparing some incredible gift for me. It was just this." As she spoke, Liam dismounted, tying his horse's reins to a nearby stump. Then he walked toward her. She looked down at him haughtily, about to lecture him about his earlier provocations. But instead, Liam grabbed the saddle of her horse and, in one smooth motion, swung himself up onto the horse's back, sitting directly behind her. "What kind of game are you playing?" Cassandra had reached her limit. First, he provokes her. Then he tells her that was the gift. Had she given him too much power? Did he really dare to be so presumptuous? She was about to erupt in fury when she heard his soft voice in her ear. "Sure." The warm breath, carrying his clean, masculine scent, brushed against her skin, sending an unexpected jolt through her. At the same time, as the last of the sun vanished, the sky went dark. Then, from far below, a sharp thump echoed through the air. A streak of light shot up from the base of the mountain, exploding high above them in a shower of brilliant color. Night had fallen, and with it came a festival of lights. Fireworks bloomed like giant flowers over the sea, their dazzling light competing with the stars. They burst in the sky, scattering sparks in every direction, painting beautiful patterns against the dark canvas, all to the soundtrack of the wind and the waves. As the fireworks continued to erupt, Liam's arm wrapped around her slender waist. He rested his chin on her shoulder. "If you didn't like the first gift," he murmured with a soft laugh, "then what about this private fireworks display?" His voice, laced with a tenderness she had never heard from him before, echoed in her ear. In that moment, her heart began to soften. The magnificent view below, the man holding her from behind, the entire experience made her spirit soar. An unconscious smile touched Cassandra's lips. She stared at the dazzling display and offered a rare compliment. Not bad. She glanced at his profile from the corner of her eye. It's ordinary, but I accept the sentiment, she said. But let me make myself clear. If you ever think about escaping again, don't blame me for being merciless. As she rambled on, Liam noticed her eyes were fixed on the fireworks. A small smile played on his lips as he watched her transfixed profile. I know you've seen and done it all. I know a spectacle like this is nothing to you. But you like me, don't you? So if I'm the one racing horses on the beach with you, if I'm the one watching fireworks with you, then your feelings for me are the multiplier. In this moment, as these fireworks bloom, for me, this moment will be my get-out-of-jail-free card forever. Hey, are those fireworks over there? Look, who's setting off fireworks? They're so pretty. Did the show arrange this? It looks kind of far away, though. On the main island, the live stream of the show's final celebration was in full swing. The remaining two couples were on a beach date when they saw the distant fireworks display. Everyone stopped to watch. The cameraman panned over. In the live stream chat, the audience erupted with excitement. Wow, the producers really went all out. Fireworks, what a great show. So beautiful. Watching fireworks over the ocean. Whoever thought of this is a genius. It's perfect. Meanwhile, Sienna and the Liam stand-in were sitting with their backs to the camera. The shot was framed from a distance, with various special effects from viewer GIFs obscuring much of the screen. You could vaguely make out two figures sitting on the beach, but it was impossible to tell if it was really them. Initially, some viewers have been complaining. It was the last broadcast. Couldn't Liam at least show his face? But when the fireworks started, their attention was successfully diverted, and the critical comments dwindled. Sienna sat on the sand, hugging her teddy bear and gazing at the distant explosions. Her eyes lit up. Whoa, brother Liam, you've really outdone yourself, she whispered in amazement. Cassandra's going to be completely head over heels for him after this. She watched the spectacular show, then playfully slung an arm around the mannequin's shoulder, pulling it closer. So, buddy, she said to the stand-in, we've seen the fireworks. You think they're going to get some sparks of their own later? She continued muttering to herself, man, I wish I could be there to see it live. How amazing must that be? At the Thorne family estate, the private jet had just landed. Catherine Thorne immediately pulled out her phone and opened the hell or paradise. Livestream. The livestream panned to the beach date. The screen showed the exact moment the idol Sienna Shaw was snuggling up to the Liam stand-in as they watched the fireworks. Charles, look, they're hugging, Catherine exclaimed, grabbing her husband, Charles Thorne, as he was about to disembark. Charles leaned over. His eyes narrowed at the screen. The girl was a famous idol, but in the dim, flickering light of the live stream, she looked so much like. Is that Riley? He growled. His face darkened with rage. That little brat. I'm going to have someone bring him here right now. How dare he put his arms around our daughter? I'll make him regret the day he was born. Catherine, however, was thrilled. What are you so worked up about? Even if it is her, look at the comments. They're saying she initiated it. And honestly, any man our Riley takes an interest in can't be all that bad. That may be so, but watching his daughter be so proactive while the man next to her didn't even lift a finger was driving Charles crazy. Ever since his precious daughter had turned 18, she hadn't even let him hug her, always talking about propriety and personal space. Seeing this felt like his house was being robbed. No, I have to meet this young man. I need to test him myself, Charles said, gritting his teeth. Catherine glanced at her husband and couldn't help but smile. All right, dear. The show ends tomorrow anyway. We'll have someone pick him up in the morning. Seeing his face was still flushed with anger, she leaned against his shoulder, her voice softening. Calm down, honey. I think this kid seems all right. His background is a bit tragic, but think about it. Even our Cassandra has stepped in to help him. How bad can he be? She looked up at him with pleading eyes. Even though they had been abroad, they were kept well informed about their children's lives by their staff. The moment Catherine saw the viral livestream, she couldn't sit still and had dragged Charles straight home. Charles took a deep breath, his temper starting to cool. Catherine's eyes twinkled. If even Cassandra has no objections to the man Riley likes, then I'm sure he's a good kid. Charles gave his wife a long look, then sighed. We'll bring him here first. I'll see for myself. How much longer? On board a speeding motorboat, Silas Crane asked the question, his face grim. About 2 more hours, his assistant replied, checking his phone. The show's production team did a good job keeping the location secret. The intel from our people came in a little late. Oomph. Silas nodded, staring out at the dark water without another word. A knot of anxiety tightened in the assistant's stomach. Sir, how should we proceed? Do we take him directly, or— Don't draw any attention, Silas commanded. This matter should not involve outsiders. If they're still alive, Wait until it's over. Find an opportunity and grab him. Yes, sir, the assistant replied. He hesitated, then asked nervously, Sir, I could have handled this. Why did you come in person? Silas shot him a cold glance, but didn't answer. He turned his gaze back to the sea, his expression growing darker. Did he think he wanted to be here? The memory of the threats from the Landon family made Silas's blood run cold. If they hadn't threatened his life and fortune, he would never have taken this risk himself. Still, he couldn't figure out. Liam was supposed to be related to them by blood. Why were they so insistent on his destruction? Why, more than a decade ago, did they have him abduct a 1-year-old child? Were they worried he would be a threat to the family inheritance? But this wasn't some ancient era of dynastic infighting. What was the Landon family, one of the 4 great families, planning? Silas racked his brain, but could find no answer. His own family was small. If not for the help of the Landon family patriarch, Lawrence Landon, all those years ago, he would never have achieved his current status. Now, his fate was inextricably tied to theirs. Against a powerhouse like the Landon family, he could only obey. Silas just prayed that once this was over, he would never be dragged into their affairs again. Back on Horizon Island, as the last of the fireworks faded, Liam produced 2 cans of beer from seemingly nowhere. He handed one to Cassandra. Care for a drink? In a surprisingly good mood, Cassandra raised an eyebrow and took it. Glancing at the cheap, generic label in the fading light, she wrinkled her nose. Can you even drink this stuff? Try it, and you'll find out, Liam replied with a grin, popping the tab on his own can. Seeing her disdainful expression, he chuckled, tilted his head back, and chugged half the can in one go. Ah, refreshing, he said, smacking his lips with a satisfied smile. Through the lingering smoke of the fireworks, Cassandra saw the look of pure bliss on his face. Dubiously, she brought the can to her lips and took a small, hesitant sip. She immediately grimaced. This is disgusting. Disgusting. Liam looked at her, baffled. Ma'am, this is $17 can craft beer. Your palate is way too refined. Her expression was still one of pure contempt, but she gamely took another, much larger gulp. Watching this transparently self-contradictory act, Liam couldn't help but laugh. He took her reins in his free hand, spurred the horse, and guided it in a few circles. Want to go for a ride along the shore, ma'am? The beer was starting to go to her head. Cassandra licked her lips, a pleasant warmth spreading through her. She didn't object. Liam smiled, tightened his grip on the reins, and guided the horse down the small hill. As they rode, the sea breeze washed over them, and the sound of waves crashing filled the air. With the fireworks gone, the moon cast a silvery light over their shoulders. Riding along the water's edge, Liam finished his beer, crushed the can, and stuffed it into a large pocket of his trousers. He then wrapped his arm back around Cassandra's waist. Miss Thorne, there's something I'm actually curious about. His voice was soft and light, coming from just beside her ear. The beer had left Cassandra slightly buzzed. What is it? She asked, her own voice still cool, but a fraction less sharp. What is it that you actually like about me? Or rather, what is it about me that you find so addicting? Liam's question was blunt. He saw no point in beating around the bush with her anymore. After these past few days, he had a better understanding of her. Beneath the tyrannical exterior, as long as he played along, she was less prone to extreme behavior. But that was conditional on his willingness. And he wasn't willing. He didn't like her. In the finite time he had no intention of letting his life revolve around anyone else. His words mingled with the sound of the waves. In her tipsy state, Cassandra only caught the last part of his question. What is it I like? Perhaps at first, it was his indifference that had drawn her in. But over time, she found that Liam possessed a sense of freedom she had never known. Unlike him, Cassandra had been raised on a strict diet of elite education, her every moment scheduled and accounted for. From the moment she could understand, she knew the weight on her shoulders was not just the Thorne family, but the tens of thousands of people they employed. Those people provided the family with labor and value, and in return, the Thornes had to stand at the forefront providing them with jobs. Any problem, even a small internal conflict, could cause the entire structure to tremble, leaving countless people unemployed. Before her father handed over the reins, he had told her, beyond profit, do everything possible to avoid conflict. This was the doctrine she had been raised on. She had never experienced an ordinary life. She only knew the immense pressure of her position, of the other great families constantly plotting to devour her. And now, with Liam's chest pressed against her back, she could feel the steady beat of his heart. She realized she needed a harbor, a place where she could finally breathe. She didn't need him to do anything, just be by her side, to wash away her fatigue. Like right now, This moment was a pocket of joy outside of her endless duties. She didn't answer his question. Instead, she asked one of her own, "What are your plans after the show ends?" It sounded like a casual question, born from her good mood. It lacked the usual demanding tone, sounding more like a genuine inquiry into his desires. But Liam, who had learned to be ever cautious around her, didn't fall into the trap. He chuckled. "What? Are you planning on letting me go, Miss Thorne?" "I'm just interested in hearing your plan," she said coolly, her tone unreadable. She wanted to know his true thoughts. Liam glanced at her curiously. He turned the horse, guiding it back toward the hill. "I don't really have a plan. If I did, though." His gaze drifted out over the dark blue expanse of the ocean. A smile suddenly touched his lips. "I'd probably go to the pier and eat some fries." Cassandra turned her head, a rare look of disbelief on her face. "That's it. What else would there be?" Liam replied, a picture of perfect ease. "I don't have any grand ambitions. If I could, I think I'd just travel the world." As he spoke, he didn't notice the intensifying heat in Cassandra's gaze. He was truly mesmerizing. Everything he did, everything he said, was completely unexpected. No, they were answers she had never even conceived of. "But I'd advise you to give up those ideas." Cassandra's imperious voice cut through the air. "Until I grow tired of you, you're not going anywhere." Liam, having fully expected this, just shrugged and played along. Yes, yes, whatever Miss Thorne says." The horse had carried them back to the top of the small hill. Liam dismounted first. Glancing at the dark surroundings, Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "Aren't we going back?" "Back?" Liam laughed, pulling a cheap, rolled-up beach mat from behind the same stump where he'd hidden the beer. He spread it out on the ground. "A view like this? It would be a waste not to enjoy it a little longer." He plopped down onto the mat. This was a rare moment of freedom, and he wasn't about to cut it short. He knew that after tonight, he and Cassandra would be a public item. He would have no time for himself. And once he returned to the Thorne estate with her, who knew what would happen? He probably wouldn't have a moment like this again for a very long time. He had never planned on going back tonight. The boat Brandon had arranged was scheduled for the morning. Cassandra stood with her arms crossed, her brow furrowed in disgust as she eyed the cheap straw mat. She refused to sit. Seeing Liam lean back with his hands behind his head, staring up at the stars with a look of pure contentment, she grew agitated. "There are mosquitoes," she reminded him, her voice low and laced with impending anger. The next second, she saw him pull a small bottle of bug spray from his pocket. "Help yourself. I came prepared." Cassandra's famously cool composure began to crack. Then, she watched as Liam pulled a six-pack of beer from behind the mat, opened one for himself, and gestured to her. "Another one?" He looked a bit like a handsome vagrant, but because it was Liam doing it, Cassandra found herself thinking he looked dashing. "Never mind. A lady like you probably finds this sort of thing beneath her," Liam said, taking a swig of his beer when she didn't respond. "Who said I find it beneath me?" Cassandra snapped. Biting her lip, she kicked him lightly in the leg. "Move over," she commanded. "I'll sit on you and drink." "Fine, fine." Liam nonchalantly spread his legs, and Cassandra shifted, her weight settling onto him. The position was strangely specific. She sat sideways on his lap, yet held her back perfectly, aristocratically straight. Liam's hand froze in midair. "Hey, Ms. Thorne," he couldn't help but say. "You want to maybe rest your head on my arm?" A faint blush crept up Cassandra's neck. She shot him an irritated glance, but said nothing, obediently following his suggestion and leaning the back of her neck against his bicep. She might be slender, but she was all soft curves. All he felt holding her was yielding warmth. The faint scent of roses wafted from her skin. As she leaned against him, nestled like a child, a strange thought hit Liam. She was acting almost innocent, but the defiant displeasure and forced surrender swimming in her proud eyes told a different story. It was a stimulating contradiction. For no reason at all, Liam found this version of Cassandra strangely cute. But that was as far as it went. She was a hypocrite and a lunatic. "Here." With his free hand, Liam popped the tab on a can of beer and held it out to her. Cassandra's gaze flickered toward it, cold and proud, but she took it. The fireworks had just ended, leaving the sky open to a full bloom of stars. Beside them, the two horses nuzzled the dark earth. Behind them, down the slope, the ocean was a deep, azure expanse of blue. A clean, white moonlight spilled over the water, dusting their shoulders. Liam didn't speak again, just tilted his head back and took long pulls of beer. He opened one can after another. In his arms, Cassandra took a few delicate sips, her mind clearly elsewhere. She kept stealing glances at him, watching the moonlight trace the sharp, fine lines of his face, making his skin glow. Where their bodies met, Liam's arm was firm and solid. Initially, Cassandra hadn't trusted him. When she first sat down, her whole body had been coiled tight. But the moment her neck rested on his arm, an inexplicable sense of security washed over her, and she relaxed almost unconsciously. His embrace was strong, powerful. It was just like every night they'd spent in the same bed. A grip so tight it felt like a cage, yet it was a cage she sank into, unable and unwilling to escape. She loved this feeling, the feeling of being held tightly by the person she desired. It was proof that he needed her, a sign of his desperate want. The light buzz from the alcohol was slowly creeping up on her. The sea breeze blew past, carrying his scent, and with every breath, she sank deeper into his gentle embrace. She was addicted. "Will you be with me forever?" Staring up at the twinkling sky, Cassandra blurted the question out of nowhere. Startled, Liam, hazy from the beer, turned his focus from the stars to her face, less than a foot from his. He tried to read her expression. It was as cold and unreadable as ever, but her gaze was fixed on the heavens, tinged with a hopeful query. There was even a trace of vulnerability. Liam froze. Vulnerability? That wasn't Cassandra Thorne's style. This had to be a test. A jolt went through him, and the cool sea breeze seemed to sober him up instantly. How could he? No matter how many times she asked that question, his answer would always be the same, even if he had to bow to her tyrannical will. He hesitated, then slowly began, "Ms. Thorne, you will be with me forever, right?" Before he could finish, her icy eyes locked onto his, catching his gaze as he tried to look away. Liam's throat went dry. "Ms. Thorne, you're drunk," he said, a bad feeling creeping over him. "I should take you back." He could see the crimson flush on her cheeks in the moonlight. He was scrambling for an excuse, but he never expected what came next. Cassandra's hand shot up and clamped onto his jaw, her grip shockingly strong. She forced him to look at her. Then, word by painstaking word, she commanded, "Look at me." The wild, bloodthirsty insanity in her eyes flooded his vision. Their gazes met, tangled, like a jungle of vines wrapping around him, suffocating him. She would not allow him to change the subject, not when she was speaking. When she spoke, she had to be the sole occupant of all his senses. She demanded that her reflection be the only thing in his clear, dark eyes. Only her. She was his everything. This was her way, invading his world with the most domineering force imaginable, branding herself onto his very soul. Liam's eyes flickered, but he knew exactly what answer she wanted. She was too domineering. She wouldn't permit any dissent. But for Liam, need could be faked. So could affection. Until his plan was complete, keeping her stable was the best option. Especially now. There was no point in rebelling at this stage. A small smile played on his lips. He met her intense gaze without fear, the answer rolling off his tongue. Of course I'll be with you. At least for tonight. After that, who knows what's next?" He expected her to force him to repeat the full sentence, but instead, she leaned in, closing the distance with a reckless, crashing force. The searing heat of her lips met his. It was a familiar sensation by now, one he had grown accustomed to. But as the heat bloomed, the alcohol he just consumed finally hit him. He met her kiss without fear. The distance between them became negative. "Liam," he heard her whisper, a muffled, desperate call between their lips. Her hands had found their way to his shoulders, her eyes hazy as they locked on him. "You are mine." Her gaze darkened. She grabbed the collar of his shirt, pulling it tight. The fabric constricted, and a wave of suffocation rushed to his head. Liam's vision swam. His body felt light, detached, as her overwhelming, consuming presence continued, forcing his breath to a standstill. Through the dizzying haze, he vaguely heard her command. "Call me, Ms. Thorne." Hiss. "Call me by my name. Cassandra. Tell me you'll be with me forever and never leave." Liam's mind was a blur. He could barely make out her half-closed eyes, her face flushed crimson, beads of sweat on her forehead, and her hair, damp from the sea spray, clinging to her skin. He was drowning in her. Her voice seemed to echo from heaven itself, layered over the wild crash of waves on the rocks below. At least for this one moment, he chose to surrender. "I'll be with you, forever, and never leave." Moonlight bathed the small hill, and the sound of the churning sea mingled with the final, frenzied celebration before the storm. "Mr. Sterling, we've confirmed it. Liam isn't here. It seems he's gone to Solitude Key." Sean Sterling and his men stepped off the small boat onto the shore of the island where Hell, or Paradise, was filmed. The beach was empty, save for a few crew members cleaning up in the distance. Listening to his assistant's report, Sean narrowed his eyes. "Solitude Key? Yes, it's a small resort island about a half-hour from here. The assistant grinned sleazily. He's probably shacked up with that idol, Sienna Shaw, sneaking off to the next island over. Those two know how to have fun, huh? Sean glanced at him, his serious expression melting into a smirk. They certainly do. Sir, this seems like a golden opportunity, the assistant said, rubbing his hands together, visibly excited by the drama. Why don't we head over there now? We can catch them in the act, grab him while there. Occupy, don't be an idiot. Sean snapped. We wait for him here. We move when he's alone. Liam was still a Landon, after all. They were supposed to abduct him, not hurt him. Yes, sir. The assistant nodded, not daring to say another word. The group returned to their boat, waiting for Sean's command. As dawn broke, a luxury yacht docked at the shore. Sean watched as a woman in black, her face obscured by a large sun umbrella, disembarked, followed by several bodyguards. There was no one else. They waited patiently. A short while later, they spotted the small boat marked with the Hell or Paradise logo heading for the shore. Through his binoculars, Sean saw him clearly. It was Liam. He's coming, Sean ordered. Remember, do not reveal your identities. If you fail, call me. His assistant nodded, taking a few bodyguards and sneaking along a path toward the back of the hotel. It was just after 7 in the morning, and the hotel was silent. Last night's festivities had gone on late, and everyone was still asleep. Liam hadn't woken up naturally. He'd been frozen awake. The island was beautiful, but its one drawback was the cold. The biting early morning sea breeze had shocked him out of his sleep. Cassandra's body was ice cold, too. Spring mornings and evenings by the sea were brutal. He'd had no choice but to wake her and get her back on her boat. As they had agreed, she would return to the main island first, and he would follow shortly after to avoid being seen. As his boat docked, he stretched and hopped onto the shore. He planned to find a spot in the nearby woods to relieve himself. After all that beer and the long boat ride, he was about to burst. He found a secluded spot in the dense woods not far from the dock and comfortably unbuckled his belt. Just as he finished and was buttoning up, he heard a rustling sound in the trees behind him. The next second, a powerful gust of wind rushed past his ear. Liam flinched, instinctively twisting his body to the side. Damn kid, you dodged it. The attacker, holding a wooden club, glared at him and roared to his accomplices. He's here. Now. Liam froze. In an instant, 5 or 6 burly men sprang out from behind the surrounding trees. What the? You guys were just watching me take a piss? Before he could finish the thought, the men charged. Liam's eyes widened. He grabbed the trunk of a large tree beside him and, with a few powerful shoves of his hands and feet, scrambled up into the branches. He hugged the trunk, grabbed a sturdy branch, and hauled himself higher, planting his feet firmly on the wood in a defensive posture. From his perch, he yelled down at them. Who the hell are you people? Hiding in the woods at dawn to watch a guy pee? Are you sick? Shut your mouth, kid. No one was watching you. Get the hell down here. Get down? Do I look like an idiot to you? Liam shot back, his mouth twitching in disbelief. 5 or 6 guys ambushing him in the woods. You didn't need a Ph.D. to know this wasn't a welcome party. He wasn't coming down. The assistant was a loss. They were in the woods, but not far from the hotel. A path was nearby, and someone could come by at any moment. He stared up at Liam, pulled out his phone, and made a call. Mr. Sterling. Yes, we'll wait for you here. Hanging up, he signaled for his men to stand down. They all craned their necks, staring up at Liam in the tree. Even without hearing the other side of the conversation, Liam had a pretty good idea of what was happening. Someone was coming to deal with him. But for the life of him, he couldn't figure out who would be looking for him now. The Hamiltons? Impossible. He knew their situation better than anyone. They probably couldn't even make payroll. They were barely saving themselves, let alone hiring goons to come after him. Could it be Jessica? That made no sense either. The only person she had on her side was her useless brother. He didn't have his phone. He'd come back this morning without even changing his clothes, leaving the horses tied up on the other island. Everyone on the show should be asleep, and this path was rarely used anyway. With no other choice, Liam waited in the tree for the mastermind to appear. Before long, he saw a well-built, middle-aged man in a suit walking down the path from the beach. He was tall and carried himself with the air of a CEO. Liam didn't speak, just watched as the man approached, took in the situation, and then barked at his men. You pack of idiots. I told you to invite him, not threaten him with clubs. Get rid of them. Yes, yes, sir. The men scrambled to obey. The assistant led the way, tossing his club aside and offering Liam an apologetic smile. The man's expression softened as he looked up at Liam, who was still hugging the tree trunk. Liam, right? Come on down. Let's talk. His tone was polite, but Liam was on high alert. He stared down at the man, his voice cold. You know me? The man smiled. Of course. Liam, you don't have to be afraid. My name is Sean Sterling. I'm the CEO of Sterling Corp. I even held you when you were a baby. Sterling Corp? Held him as a baby? Liam stared at Sean, stunned. He thought he'd heard that name somewhere before, but it must have been an insignificant connection because he couldn't place it. He narrowed his eyes. Don't tell me my biological father is about to make an appearance. He could feel that Sean Sterling was bad news, so his tone remained sharp. What do you want with me? It's not me who wants to see you, son. It's your family. They asked me to come find you. Sean Sterling deftly deflected all responsibility, trying to play the sympathy card. But Liam wasn't buying it. His voice was cold, his expression impassive. In that case, tell them to come see me themselves. What a joke. If you wanted a reunion, you showed some damn sincerity. Showing up at clubs? If he hadn't been quick on his feet, he'd be unconscious right now. Besides, he was abandoned at 1.5, spent nearly 6 years in the system, and then over a decade as an outsider in someone else's home. And now they'd found him. They expected him to come running to their door. They hadn't even come themselves. Did they think he was a piece of trash they could just pick up whenever they felt like it? Seeing the anger in Liam's eyes, Sean kept his face tilted up, his expression gentle. Son, your family situation is complicated. You have to go back and see for yourself to understand. It's not my place to say more. Then, Sean swore, Kid, it was my fault for not explaining things to them properly. I won't let them hurt you. We went to a lot of trouble to find you. I hope you come back with me. Please, as a favor to your uncle. Liam's eyes flickered. It wasn't that he was moved by Sean's heartfelt plea. He was looking at the boat in the distance, thinking, maybe, this is my chance to escape Cassandra. His biological father's mysterious troubles had nothing to do with him. What mattered was that he could use this as an excuse to get out from under Cassandra's thumb. After all, escaping from anywhere had to be easier than escaping from her. Even if she found out later, he could blame Sean. He could claim it was a kidnapping, and no one would question it. Liam narrowed his eyes, mentally calculating his funds. Yesterday's fireworks had cost him nearly $150,000, including Brandon Zhang's labor fee. He still had about $600,000 left. It wasn't the fortune he'd been aiming for, but it was enough to get him across an ocean. Staring down at the group of men waiting below, Liam adopted a look of someone who had been deeply moved. Actually, he said, his voice heavy, I've wanted to meet them for a long time. Sean's eyes lit up. Liam, however, looked utterly aggrieved, his voice laced with the lingering fear of the attack. But they really scare me just now, with the clubs and everything. I've never seen anything so terrifying. He spun around and slapped his assistant across the face. What is wrong with you? What do I keep you around for? Look how you scared the boy. The assistant could only apologize profusely, stammering, Mr. Sterling, it's all my fault. Son, come down now. It's dangerous up there, Sean urged kindly. Liam raised an eyebrow, then slid down the tree, landing lightly on his feet. But his eyes never left the bodyguards, his body coiled and ready for a fight. Seeing his caution, Sean let out a breath of relief and tried to soothe him. Don't be afraid, son. I'm here. No one will touch you. A flicker of contempt crossed Liam's face. He glanced at the boat in the distance and put on a pathetic look. Uncle, did my family really send you to find me? Of course. Do you think I'd lie about something like that? Sean said, slinging an arm over Liam's shoulder. He hadn't expected it to be this easy. He'd done his research on Liam. Anyone who could both build up and tear down the Hamiltons with such ease had to be incredibly sharp. He'd been worried Liam would play games, but it seemed a few simple words were enough to win him over. Apparently, the word family was the key to unlocking Liam's defenses. The kid was still too young. Don't worry, son. Come back with me and see your family. They all miss you very much, Sean added, his tone confident that he had Liam completely under his control. Liam kept his head down, but his eyes were sharp. In those few short sentences, he'd understood one thing. Sean was even more desperate for this reunion than he was. In that case, Sean only had himself to blame for what came next. Uncle Sean. They were walking when Sean heard Liam call his name. He stopped and turned to see Liam with his head bowed. What is it, son? I just remembered. I can't go back. Liam's voice was filled with anxiety and a strange terror. Sean was confused. Why not? Liam sniffled, sounding timid. I owe money to loan sharks. If I go back like this, they'll kill me. Loan sharks? Sean exclaimed. The background check hadn't mentioned anything about loan sharks. He asked urgently, how much do you owe? Altogether, over $500,000. Liam's voice trailed off as if he were afraid of being hit. He stood there, looking utterly alone, and for a moment, Sean actually felt sorry for him. He had to bring him back one way or another. Although he didn't know what the Landons wanted, Liam's bloodline was a fact, and Sean didn't dare offend them. After a moment's thought, he sighed and patted Liam's shoulder. Don't worry, I'll transfer you the money right now. Really? Liam forced himself to look grateful, his eyes wide with hope as he looked at Sean. Without another word, Sean pulled out his phone and had Liam type in his account number. A few seconds later, a wire for $500,000 landed in Liam's account. Adding that to what he had left from Cassandra and the salary from Brandon Jung, he now had just over $1 million. Watching Sean lead the way, Liam smirked. He had to admit, playing the victim worked like a charm. With the money secured, Liam had no intention of hesitating. He boarded Sean's boat, planning to meet his family, take their money, and run. To him, blood was just a leash. For the family that had given birth to him but never raised him, he felt not a shred of sympathy. As for Cassandra, she was a nightmare. And now, that nightmare was about to end. Ma'am, I've asked around. Mr. Lynn disappeared after he got off the boat. Hotel security confirmed he never came back. On the 7th floor, in Cassandra's suite, Evelyn Reed delivered her report, her heart pounding. The two of them had seemed fine yesterday, so why would he run off today? Mr. Lynn was certainly a handful. Seeing Cassandra's silence, Evelyn swallowed hard and said cautiously, Ma'am, could it be that Mr. Lynn ran off again? She didn't finish her sentence, meeting Cassandra's cold gaze. It wasn't an escape, Cassandra stated without hesitation. Her eyes, dark and menacing, swept over Evelyn. Keep looking. Turn this island upside down if you have to, but find him. 3 hours of waiting felt like 3 years to Cassandra. She kept rubbing her thumb over her phone, scrolling through the saved clips of Liam from the show. Her eyes narrowed. You'd better be where I think you are. If you've run away again, you will never see the sun again. Just then, Evelyn rushed in, breathless. Ma'am, we found something. A crew member said some outsiders came to the island. They were smart, avoided all the cameras. Evelyn pulled out her phone and tapped the screen a few times before handing it to Cassandra. But I had our people check the port surveillance in New York. 10 minutes ago, Liam and several other men got off a small boat. As she continued her report, Cassandra's eyes were fixed on the screen. In the footage, Liam was surrounded by several men in black suits. They weren't using force, but the way they watched him, the way they boxed him in, told her everything. He was being coerced. It seemed someone else had taken an interest in her pet. A slow, chilling smile spread across Cassandra's lips, her eyes glinting with a bloodthirsty light. She gestured with a finger for Evelyn to continue. Evelyn caught her breath. We've identified them. The man in charge is the CEO of Sterling Corp., Sean Sterling. Ma'am, I don't understand, Evelyn admitted. Liam's past has no connection to the Sterling family. Why would Sean Sterling be looking for him now? Cassandra had the same question, but one thing was certain. Anyone who dared to touch what was hers had to die. Inform Haley Lou immediately, she commanded, placing her phone flat on the table, her voice as cold as ice. Tell her to have Sean Sterling release him. Within the hour, Liam had better be unharmed. Otherwise, even if they return him peacefully, I will not let this go. Evelyn nodded quickly, taking the phone and silently wiping a bead of sweat from her brow. Daring to make a move on Liam, this guy had kicked a steel plate. Watching Evelyn, Cassandra's gaze deepened. She narrowed her eyes, her voice dropping to a frigid whisper. And have him deliver Liam to my office. Personally, yes, ma'am. After they docked, 2 black cars were waiting by the shore. Sean Sterling was about to usher Liam into one when his phone rang. He gave Liam an apologetic smile. Son, you go ahead and get in the car. I have some company business to take care of. Liam's eyes flickered, but he didn't say anything, obediently ducking into the car. On the way, he had tried to probe Sean for information about his so-called family, but Sean had been evasive, changing the subject every time. It was obvious this homecoming was a trap. Sean wouldn't even reveal his family's name, which only made Liam more certain of his guess. The only ones who could command Sean Sterling and make him this cautious were a family more powerful than his own. The only ones above him that Liam knew of were the 4 families. The famed 4 families of New York City were the Walshes, the Van Cess, the Orwells, and the Landons. The Van Cess had already been crushed by Cassandra, leaving 3. The Landons, glancing out the window at Sean, who had his back to the car while on the phone, a thought struck Liam. His biological father was probably a Landon. It was a possibility he had never dared to entertain before. But Sean's appearance forced him to consider it. If it were true, everything would make sense. Perhaps a rival Landon heir, or his father's second wife, had wanted to seize the family fortune and arrange for him to be abducted as a 1-year-old. They just never expected him to come roaring back, let alone become famous online. So now they had to silence him. Liam knew that if his theory was correct, Sean Sterling was just a gun. The person holding it was another Landon heir. This trip back was fraught with danger, but Liam now had a clear objective. If he couldn't meet his biological father, he'd go find his father's father. In a world of old money, seniority trumped everything. Find his grandfather or grandmother, and maybe he could protect himself. Outside, Sean finally finished his call and glanced back at the car. Seeing Liam sitting quietly, he breathed a sigh of relief and approached with a warm smile. Getting in, he grinned at Liam. "Son, about those questions you were asking on the way. I can answer them now." Liam looked up. "You know about the 4 families, right?" Sean said, signaling the driver to go as he stared out the front windshield. "Well, your biological father was the eldest son of the Landon family." As expected, a gasp of shock came from the back seat. Anyone hearing that news would be stunned. The 4 families. An heir to such a massive conglomerate? It was a prize no one would turn down. It seemed Liam was no different. What Sean didn't know was that Liam's gasp was one of confirmation. He guessed correctly, but he was curious. "Uncle Sean, why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked, feigning excitement. "It's a huge deal." "I didn't dare say anything rashly," Sean said slowly, "but I just spoke with them on the phone. They said that before you get home, they're going to announce it to the media. Don't be nervous, but there will be reporters filming your return." He'd guessed he was a Landon, but he never guessed they would publicize it so extravagantly. The long-lost heir of a powerful family returns, and the person in question was the recently viral factory guy. Without a doubt, once this news broke, the publicity would be unprecedented. For him, that was a good thing. But Liam didn't believe in free lunches. Once his return to the Landon family was public, it would be much harder for the people who wanted him dead to make a move. Anyone else would be ecstatic. But Liam, who had spent half his life on guard, couldn't relax. The kidnapping years ago, the fact that a family as powerful as the Landons hadn't found him for over 20 years. Why now? Suddenly, Liam's scalp tingled. He had a feeling that, after escaping Cassandra, he had just been sucked into an even bigger whirlpool. Just as Liam predicted, as he was driven home, the news exploded across every platform. Landon heir, missing for 20 years, has been found. Beneath the headlines, Liam's name was trending along with his viral fame from the show. The title Factory Guy was right there beside it. The comments were brutal. "LOL, so the factory guy is a real-life trust fund baby." I knew there was something different about him. Turns out he's a Landon. The Hamiltons are the biggest clowns. They made all that drama just to help a Rayall dynasty find their kid. Ha ha. It's a perfect match, honestly. Now I feel like with Sienna Shaw, he's the one punching up. Hey, you can't say that. Sienna has powerful backers too. That's just a rumor. And besides, could her backers be bigger than one of the 4 families? Thank God for the internet. Back in the day, you'd never get a blue blood heir performing for your entertainment. For a while, the internet was a storm of trending topics all about him. The moment he saw the news, Justin, who was having breakfast with his family, gasped. "Sis, Dad, Mom, you have to see this. The internet says Liam is the long-lost son of the Landon family." Justin excitedly held his phone out for everyone to see. Jessica, a half-eaten dumpling still in her mouth, quickly grabbed her own phone. It was true. The news about Liam and Sienna had been all over the place for days. She had been thinking about trying to remind Liam of the good times they'd had, but after seeing what happened to Noel Hamilton on the show, she hadn't dared to make a move. She was planning to wait until the show ended to try and talk to him. And now this? Liam was a Landon. Is it the Landon family? One of the 4 families. Karen's eyes lit up instantly. "It's 3 families now, not 4. Frank corrected her, snatching the phone to read the details. Karen and Justin leaned in close, their heads huddled together. Frank's thumb scrolled furiously through endless articles about Liam. "It really is him." Karen was ecstatic. She grabbed Jessica's arm. "Honey, you have to work hard. Our family's future depends on you." I knew it. A chauffeur could never afford a Rolls-Royce. The Landons must have been backing him all along. Justin muttered, looking at his sister with hopeful eyes. "Sis, it's all on you now. That's the Landon family. You have to get him back." Even if they hadn't said it, Jessica knew what she had to do. She never imagined Liam had this kind of background. The Landons, one of the most powerful families in the city. A flick of their wrist was worth several times what the Hamiltons ever had. But looking at the familiar yet distant face on the screen, Jessica felt a pang of uncertainty. "Mom, Dad, Sis, you were his first love. You two were high school sweethearts. What are you afraid of?" "Exactly." Frank agreed wholeheartedly. "My precious daughter spent her best years on him. You think he'll just ignore you?" Karen nodded eagerly. "Just act a little spoiled. Men love it when a girl acts cute." Justin nodded furiously, his face full of hope. Memories of the old, devoted Liam flooded back to her. Mixed with her family's words, Jessica could almost see the life of a wealthy socialite beckoning to her. She bit her lip, her voice firm. Okay, but Mom, Dad, I can't even get in the same room with him now. He's blocked me on everything. Don't worry, Frank declared. The Landons will definitely throw a banquet to celebrate. You find a way to get an invitation. That's right. Karen chimed in. If we have to, we'll spend some money. We can mortgage the house. And what about Chad? Justin added. Sis, what are you scared of? Their words, one after another, rebuilt Jessica's confidence. She nodded. Okay, Mom, Dad, Justin, don't worry. As long as I can see him, I will find a way to win him back. You can call off the threat to Sean Sterling. In her hotel suite, Cassandra stared at her phone, her expression unreadable as she spoke to Evelyn, who had just rushed in. Yes, ma'am. I understand. Evelyn nodded, her mind reeling. She had assumed Liam was just the discarded son of some minor family, found by her boss in a moment of serendipity. She never imagined that the stray her boss picked up off the street was a genuine heir to a fortune. Although his status was still a step below Cassandra's in that moment, Evelyn felt that her boss and Liam were a perfect match. The image of the two of them working side by side at this very desk flashed in her mind, and her eyes practically sparkled. It was a match made in heaven. Sis, did you see the news? Riley burst in, then stopped short when she saw the phone in Cassandra's hand. Her tone shifted. Liam is a Landon heir? Your taste is impeccable. The praise brought a flicker of pleasure to Cassandra's face. Memories of her time with Liam played like a movie in her mind, and a hint of warmth softened her cold eyes. Riley, ever perceptive, caught it and grew even more excited. She leaned in closer and whispered, Hey sis, the Landons are having a party in a few days. How about I go and do some reconnaissance for you? Cassandra raised an eyebrow. I'll go myself. No, don't. Riley protested. Sis, he just got back. His family is going to be all weepy and emotional. It would be so awkward for you to be there. Cassandra frowned. Riley had a point. All that messy family drama was the last thing she wanted to deal with, and her little pet seemed reluctant to come with her anyway. Seeing Cassandra's silence, Riley knew she'd hit the mark. She batted her eyelashes. I'll go first and check things out for you. Once the official ceremony is over, I'll make an excuse to pull Liam away and set up some private time for you too. Who wants private time with him? Cassandra snapped, a flicker of panic on her proud face at being seen through so easily. TSK, TSK. Riley rolled her eyes internally. Yeah, right? Not like you want to be alone with him. Sis, the way you look at him is anything but innocent. Then it's settled. I'm going to get ready now. Without giving Cassandra a chance to object, Riley made the decision and bolted from the room. Beside them, Evelyn's mouth twitched. The younger miss was certainly energetic. It was a good thing the boss was in a good mood. Otherwise, she'd never tolerate such antics. Evelyn cautiously studied Cassandra's expression. Ma'am, if there's nothing else, I'll go arrange our return trip. Seeing Cassandra nod, she breathed a sigh of relief and turned to leave. But before she reached the door, she heard Cassandra's cold voice. Something's not right. Evelyn froze and turned back. What? Ma'am, what's not right? She looked at her boss, bewildered. From a distance, she could see Cassandra's face had darkened, a sinister look in her eyes. If he's a Landon, Cassandra's icy voice echoed in the room. Why did it take them over 20 years to find him? The question hit Evelyn like a physical blow. She froze, the realization dawning on her. You're right, ma'am. With the Landon family's resources, finding someone should be easy. How could it? She trailed off, now understanding the implication. She looked at her boss in shock. A moment ago, she'd been giddy about the romantic pairing, completely overlooking this massive red flag. Cassandra's expression was glacial, the pressure in the room dropping to freezing. She narrowed her eyes at Evelyn, her voice low and dangerous. At the banquet in a few days, send men to protect Liam. In secret, Evelyn nodded vigorously. Then she asked, and Miss Riley? Her as well, Cassandra added. And don't let Riley know about this. Understood. After Evelyn left, Cassandra's gaze returned to her phone, to the distant, indifferent eyes of the man on the screen. Her own eyes darkened. What secrets are you hiding? She murmured, that it took the Landons this long to find you. An image of the previous night's passion flashed in her mind. She licked her dry lips, a greedy, insatiable whisper escaping them. You will never escape me. Son, we're here. In the slowing car, Sean Sterling turned to Liam with a smile. Remember, not a word about the loan sharks, or your time with the Hamiltons. Once you walk through that door, you are the one and only young master of the Landon family. Liam's heart sank as he saw the crowd of reporters outside the estate gates, the red carpet, the bouquets of flowers. Sean signaled for the driver to slow down and open the rear windows. Instantly, a barrage of camera flashes lit up the car. They drove onto the red carpet, through the throng of people, and toward the main house. All Liam had to do was sit in the back and let them take pictures. He felt like a parade float, especially in a scene like this. The last thing he wanted was to be involved with a powerful family. There was too much drama, and he hated scheming. But here he was, in this car, being forced into that very cage. It was the third time, living as an outsider, being forcibly taken. Every time, he was forced to compromise. His fate felt like it had slipped out of his control. This feeling of powerlessness, of being unwillingly entangled, he was sick of it. To the cameras, Liam was a silent figure in the back of the car, his face impassive as he stared at the Landon estate. They all assumed he was overcome with joy, too shocked to form an expression. They had no idea that all he wanted to do was get some answers and get the hell out. No one was going to control his freedom. We've arrived. The car stopped in front of the villa. Sean Sterling personally got out and opened the door for Liam. His earlier friendly demeanor was gone, replaced by a respectful deference. He bowed his head slightly. "Young Master Landon, this is as far as I go. The rest of the way, you'll have to walk yourself." Being called young master, especially by the man who had just been calling himself his uncle, felt strange. Liam didn't respond. A bodyguard in a black suit approached and bowed. "Young master, this way, please." Liam glanced at the opulent villa. It was smaller than Cassandra's estate, he noted. At Black Lake Manor, he couldn't see the end of the property. Here, he could actually see the security posts at the front and back. He gave a slight nod, walked around the car, and ascended the steps. Dozens of servants and bodyguards were lined up at the entrance. They all bowed in unison, their voices ringing out in a synchronized chorus. "Welcome home, young master." The sound was so loud it made Liam flinch. He couldn't help but twitch his lips. Whose idea was this? It's so awkward, even more ostentatious than Cassandra's place. But he had to go in. With a weary sigh, Liam scanned the crowd and forced himself to walk through the human corridor. Just inside the door, as expected, a young man a few years his junior rushed out and looked him up and down. "So you're Liam?" the boy blurted out, his eyes sweeping over Liam with disdain. He circled him, muttering, "Your clothes are pretty shabby." This must be another heir, Liam thought. The boy seemed to have no filter. His thoughts were written all over his face. Liam's voice was flat. "I'm Liam, and you are." "Watch your tone," the boy snapped, looking at Liam with arrogant superiority. "My name is Hayden Landon. I'm your uncle. You should call me uncle." "What?" Liam stared. "Uncle? This young? He looks like he just turned 18. Is he messing with me?" Liam had no patience for this kid's games. He just wanted to figure out what was going on and tell these schemers that he had no interest in the Landon fortune. He rolled his eyes and snapped. "You talk too much. Is that how you talk to your elders, you little brat? I'm your damn uncle. You dare talk back to me?" Hayden, who had been pampered his whole life, couldn't take the insult. He raised his hand to strike Liam. Liam was about to dodge when a stern, middle-aged voice cut through the air. "Hayden, stop this nonsense." Hayden flinched and turned around, his face full of defiance. "Dad, I'm his uncle. I'm teaching him some manners." From behind, Ian Landon walked slowly forward, his expression severe. "Go to your room." The command made Hayden tremble. He sullenly lowered his hand and, as he walked away, shot a venomous glare at Liam, muttering, "Raised in some backwater hole. No manners." Liam, however, looked at Ian without a trace of fear. Ian seemed to appreciate the lack of intimidation in his eyes, but the look vanished as quickly as it came. His steady, firm voice spoke again. "Your grandfather wants to see you. He's on the second floor." This family tree was a mess. If Hayden was his uncle, then the man in front of him was his grandfather's brother. So, where was his father? Following Ian, Liam didn't hesitate to ask, "Where is my biological father?" It was another disrespectful question. Ian shot him an annoyed sideways glance, but kept his face expressionless. "He passed away. Passed away." Liam gasped, stopping in his tracks. "Wait, my dad is dead? Then why bring me back? And with all this fanfare? What the hell is this family playing at?" As if he had expected this reaction, Ian also stopped. "Your father passed away when you were 1 year old." He said no more, waiting for Liam's questions. The less Liam knew about these things, especially family matters, the better. Ian knew exactly what his older brother was planning by bringing Liam back so publicly. Right now, he was just hoping Liam would ask fewer questions, giving his own son a better shot at the inheritance. But he was sure Liam would press on. Ian sighed, his deep gaze resting on Liam with a hint of resignation. "Ask whatever you want. As long as I know the answer, I'll tell you." Liam found the offer almost funny. Under Ian's tense gaze, he simply shook his head. No need. He's already gone. What's there to ask? Ian was stunned. He's not curious? This was the Landon family, one of the most powerful in the country. And this long-lost heir, who had grown up with nothing, had no curiosity about his own father or the family itself. Didn't you say my grandfather wanted to see me? Lead the way, Liam said, his voice flat. In that moment, Ian felt like the tables had been turned. This Liam, he might not be so easy to deal with. Follow me. He gave Liam a long, hard look, but didn't reprimand him for his insolence. He turned and led the way. Following Ian to the second floor, Liam saw a middle-aged man with a full head of blonde hair, dressed in a suit, standing guard in front of the living room doors. To his surprise, Ian spoke to the man respectfully. I brought Liam. The blonde man gestured with his hand, and Ian nodded and left, disappearing into the elevator. Once Ian was gone, the man gave Liam a deep, appraising look and gestured toward the door handle. Noticing that the man didn't open the door for him, Liam frowned, a sense of unease creeping over him. But he was already here. There was no turning back. He steeled himself and reached for the handle. The moment his fingers touched the metal, a jolt of electricity shot through his hand. He snatched it back instinctively. My apologies. The door is electrified. I forgot to turn it off, the man explained, quickly flipping a switch on the wall and pulling the door open for him. The whole bizarre encounter made Liam's unease grow. The current had been weak, so he didn't make a fuss. His gaze was fixed on the room beyond the open door. Liam, you're back. As the door opened, a slightly aged voice called out. Directly across from the entrance, Liam saw an elderly man with silvering hair sitting on a sofa, smiling at him. Liam nodded slightly and said respectfully, Grandfather. The old man nodded. Jason closed the door. Liam felt a push from behind, nudging him into the living room. The heavy doors closed behind him. Jason stood beside him, watching him like a hawk. Everything in the room looked normal, but Liam couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, especially the way his grandfather, Lawrence Landon, was looking at him, like a hunter eyeing its prey. Liam, my boy, come sit by your grandfather. Lawrence beckoned to him warmly, patting the spot on the sofa next to him. Let me get a good look at my grandson. See what you've become. In this situation, how could Liam possibly go closer? He frowned, his eyes fixed on Lawrence, his voice flat. Grandfather, my father has already passed away. He wasn't going to beat around the bush. He had a brief understanding of this family. He'd seen what he needed to see, and now it was time for answers. Lawrence looked taken aback, glancing at Jason in surprise. It must have been the second master who informed him. Jason replied immediately. Lawrence snorted, his kindly expression vanishing. He really can't wait, can he? Liam was utterly confused. But since his father was dead, none of the Landon family's affairs concerned him. If they wanted to know about P5.She, he could tell them, but after staying here, that was out of the question. He thought it, and he said it. Grandfather, since my biological father is gone, there's no reason for me to stay. This title of Landon heir will only bring me unnecessary trouble. I hope you'll allow me to leave. It was the truth. He had no intention of fighting for the inheritance. He had to lay his cards on the table first. Lawrence looked at him in disbelief. You don't want the backing of the Landon family? Liam nodded. Fighting over an inheritance is too much trouble. I don't want to think about those things. I value my freedom. I've been through too much, and I'm tired. I hope you can grant me this. His words were firm and sincere, almost humble. But Lawrence's expression grew dark, like a lion about to pounce, his eyes fixed on Liam. The intensity of his gaze made Liam's skin crawl. Could it be that he doesn't believe me? Liam was about to speak again, but Lawrence's deep voice cut him off. Liam, I want you to meet someone. Who? You'll know when you get there. Lawrence made a move to stand, and Jason immediately rushed to help him into a wheelchair. At this point, Liam couldn't refuse. He had no choice but to follow them into the elevator. When he saw Jason's finger press the button for the subbasement, his heart tightened. As the elevator descended, the enclosed space felt suffocating. Nothing was going as he'd expected. What was the Landon family, or rather, what was Lawrence Landon, up to? When the elevator doors opened, they passed through a long corridor. Lawrence raised his hand and pressed his thumb to a biometric lock. With a click, the door to a secret room swung open. Inside, under the harsh white light, Liam saw a large, soft bed. Chained to it with dozens of iron links was a skeletal figure, so emaciated he couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. Sean, what the hell is the meaning of this? Liam is a Landon? Why didn't you tell me sooner? At the Hamilton estate, David Hamilton roared into the phone. Beside him, Jason sat on the sofa in a catatonic state of disbelief. Isabel stared at her father, her face a storm of regret, self-blame, and shock. They had never imagined that Liam, the boy who had grown up by their side, was the long-lost heir of the Landon family. When the news broke, the entire Hamilton family had been stunned into silence. On the other end of the line, Sean Sterling's voice was smug and superior. "Why would I tell you? Do you really think someone of your status deserved to know?" David was livid. "If you had told us, we wouldn't have thrown him out with nothing. Now I can't even pay my employees. Sean, are you just going to watch my whole family die?" His furious, desperate voice echoed through the living room. Isabel's face was deathly pale, and she trembled at his words. Beside her, Jason's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Through the phone, Sean laughed coldly. "Yes." The word was sharp, decisive. "You should be grateful I'm even willing to take your call. You think the Hamilton family is some great noble house? You were nothing but a pawn to be discarded." Instantly, the color drained from David Hamilton's face. He never thought that his final trump card against Liam was nothing more than a role as a disposable piece in someone else's game. Him, his family, they had been nothing but chess pieces from the very beginning. In that moment, David Hamilton felt true despair. His company owed millions in back pay to employees and faced tens of millions in breach of contract fees from advertisers. The banks had blacklisted every member of his family. For an ordinary person, it would be bad. For a rising company like theirs, it was a death sentence. To top it all off, after Noel's disastrous appearance on the show, they were a national laughingstock. "Dad, I don't want to go back. I don't want to live like we used to." Jason had finally lost it. His dream of being a rich heir was shattered. He had been legally adopted, only to be branded a deadbeat and have his ugliest moments become memes online. Though he couldn't hear the phone call, his father's ashen face told him there was no hope left. Jason broke down. "You're not my father," he wailed hysterically. "I don't want to be a Hamilton." "What Hamiltons? I never wanted to come back. You're all liars." "Jason." Isabel's face was grim. Their family was in trouble. Yes, but she believed it was temporary. As long as they stuck together, even if they had to go back to their old, simpler life, she would be content. But to hear her own brother say such treacherous things. For the first time, an overwhelming sense of longing for Liam filled her. If Liam were still here, he would never be like this. She remembered when the company was failing, how he had shouldered immense pressure while still comforting them, even taking late-night driving jobs to make ends meet. Compared to Liam, her own blood brother, the one she had always doted on, seemed utterly pathetic. "Dad, we should—" Isabel started to say they should go beg Liam for help. But before she could finish, she saw her father clench his jaw, hissing into the phone. "Sean, if you don't help me, I'll tell Liam everything. We can all go down together." He was trembling with rage, but his face was a mask of terror. Sean Sterling burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha! Sean, what the hell are you laughing at?" "David, I'm laughing at how pathetic you are." Sean's laughter died, his voice turning cold as ice. "Let me be honest with you. If it weren't for our years of acquaintance, I wouldn't have even answered this call. You think the Landons are going to let you go? David, my advice to you is to grab your wife and kids and run. As far as I know, they're already on their way." "What did you say?" "I said run. The Landons have dispatched a full security team, and they're headed for your house right now." Sean's voice was laced with dark amusement. "But if you're not in a hurry, why don't you guess what the headlines will be tomorrow? Mysterious fire at Hamilton Estate, or maybe rival family wiped out." "Ha ha ha!" The line went dead. With a clatter, David's phone fell to the floor. His eyes were wide with terror, a tremor of pure panic shaking his entire body. "Dad, what's wrong?" Isabel asked, her voice trembling as she shook her father's arm. The touch snapped him out of it. Without explaining, he scrambled to a cabinet, grabbed 3 gold bars, and stuffed them into his pockets before roaring at Isabel. "Hurry, pack your things. We have to leave New York." "Why, Dad?" Stop asking questions and move," he screamed, his face contorted in a mask of pure fear. Terrified, Isabel didn't dare ask again. She grabbed the hysterical Jason and ran to her bedroom. In the sub-basement of the Landon estate, Liam frowned at the person on the bed, whose long white hair was the only indication that she was female. Lawrence gestured with his hand, and Jason pushed his wheelchair to the bedside. He laid a hand on the skeletal arm of the woman on the bed, his voice filled with a strange emotion. "Liam, this is your grandmother, Eleanor." A sharp intake of breath. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. Grandmother? If he hadn't heard it with his own ears and seen it with his own eyes, he would never have believed that the person before him was the wife of the patriarch of the most powerful of the 4 families. Liam's brow tightened. He stepped closer. "Why is she like this?" Lawrence didn't answer directly. He looked up, his shadowed eyes fixed on Liam, a speculative glint in them. Liam, do you remember the girl who saved you when you were a child? His voice seemed to have a magical, piercing quality, each word drilling into Liam's mind. In an instant, Liam's scalp tingled, and it felt as if a needle was hammering against a nerve in his brain. He squeezed his eyes shut and shook his head. I don't remember. A flicker of understanding crossed Lawrence's face. He sighed, his tone light. It's normal not to remember. You were very young. It's natural to forget. He turned his gaze back to Eleanor, his expression softening as he gently pulled her sleeve down over her arm. But his words only deepened the questions in Liam's mind. He hated games, hated an indirect approach. He cut straight to the point. So, grandfather, are you trying to say the Landon family found me a long time ago? It was a direct question, a test. The moment the words left his mouth, Lawrence shot him a surprised look, as if he hadn't expected him to be so sharp. He nodded, his voice low. Yes, but I couldn't bring you back then. Your grandmother's family was putting immense pressure on me. If I brought you home, they threatened to cut off her medicine. It made no sense. The Landons were the most powerful of the 4 families. Were his grandmother's relatives insane? But the feuds of the rich were notoriously vicious. A grudge from a past generation had lasted this long, reducing a living person to this state. Liam couldn't be bothered to understand the details. He was just grateful he'd never planned on staying. Otherwise, he would have been dragged into this fight as well. But then why bring me back with all this publicity? I don't want the Landon inheritance. Aren't you cutting off grandmother's medicine by doing this? No. Lawrence shook his head, his eyes filled with hope. Liam, do you know? The girl who saved you all those years ago. She's the daughter of a medical dynasty. Just half a month ago, I found out that she's been looking for you all this time. Liam was shocked. Looking for me? Yes. Lawrence nodded, his gaze intense. It was a stroke of luck. In a few days, I'm hosting a family banquet for you. I will invite her. I want you two to meet, and ask her to treat your grandmother. Lawrence left the last part unsaid, but it hung in the air. He looked at Liam with pleading eyes, but even under that fervent gaze, Liam shook his head. Grandfather, I think you're mistaken. I'm not a pawn in anyone's game. He would not compromise for anyone. No matter how tragic their story was, it had nothing to do with him. Besides, if the Landon family had found him long ago, they had never offered him a shred of help in the shadows. He understood not being able to bring him home, but in all those years, they had never even extended an olive branch. And now they wanted him to compromise and help them. The world didn't work that way. To give birth but not to raise was worse than not giving birth at all. Pity was a cheap emotion, and sympathizing with others meant taking on the burden of their fate. Lawrence never expected Liam to be so cold-blooded. A flash of anger appeared in his eyes. She is your grandmother, is she? Liam met the old man's gaze without fear, his voice detached. I have never enjoyed the privileges of a Landon. What makes you think I would feel any gratitude? His words stopped whatever Lawrence was about to say dead in its tracks. Liam was right. The Landon family had no grounds to force him to do anything. His experiences had made him distant and cold. It's my fault. Lawrence covered his face, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. He looked at Liam with pleading eyes. I'm begging you, son. Just agree to meet this girl, and I swear I will never force you to do anything you don't want to do again. To see this powerful, king-like patriarch humbled and begging. Honestly, Liam still wanted to refuse. But the Landon family's power was undeniable. To be completely uncooperative would be foolish. And all the old man was asking was for him to meet a girl. The request wasn't unreasonable, and he didn't know about this mysterious rescue from his past. Under Lawrence's burning gaze, Liam finally nodded. Fine, I'll meet her. Wonderful. Lawrence was overcome with joy, tears of relief streaming down his face. He looked at Liam, about to say more, when Jason's phone rang. He wiped his eyes and looked at Jason, who answered the call, listened for a moment, then hung up. Sir, the Thorne family has learned of the young master's return. They wish to see him. Hearing this, a surprised look crossed Lawrence's face. Son, you have a history with the Thornes? A bitter smile twitched on Liam's lips as an image of the lunatic Cassandra flashed in his mind. He gave a silent nod. Then you should go see them, Lawrence said with a smile. Jason, arrange a car for the young master. Yes, sir. Jason turned to Liam and gestured toward the elevator. Young master, if you please. Liam sighed, glanced at Jason, and walked out of the secret room. As he watched Liam's retreating back, the smile on Lawrence's face vanished, replaced by an unreadable depth. His hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair as he watched Liam step into the elevator. When the doors closed, a cold, anticipatory smile touched his lips. He turned his head to look at the corpse-like figure of his wife, Eleanor, on the bed, but his voice, soft and echoing, was for someone else entirely. "Clara, my dear, your wonderful grandson is all grown up." A chilling amusement entered his tone. "I truly can't wait to see what happens. Tell me, should I play this card I'm holding?" He paused, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "Oh, that's right. I forgot. You can't speak. Dead people can't talk, can they? Ha ha. Why did my grandfather disapprove of my parents' marriage?" In the ascending elevator, it was the only question Liam asked. Jason didn't even turn his head, his gaze fixed on the elevator doors. They weren't in the same league. His mother was beneath them. Liam raised an eyebrow. Interesting. They looked down on his mother, but now they wanted him to compromise for them. This Lawrence Landon was quite the player. Originally, Liam had thought that finding and pleasing his grandparents would solve his problems. But it was clear the situation with the Landon family was far more complicated than he'd imagined. As the head of the family, Lawrence's motives were not simple. But Liam had no interest in getting involved. He had over $1 million now. He would play along for a few days, try to squeeze out a bit more cash, and then find a chance to disappear. Life didn't have to be this complicated. It was noon. As they passed the dining room, Liam saw Hayden and his father, Ian, preparing to eat. Hayden glared at him furiously, while Ian's expression was unreadable. Liam raised an eyebrow, feeling strangely cheerful. He gave Hayden a little wave. As he walked past the doorway, he heard the sound of chopsticks being slammed down, followed by Ian's angry voice. "Dad, that damn nephew was provoking me." "You idiot, just eat your food. Stop talking so much." "Young master, Walter will take you to the Thorns." In front of a black Bentley, Jason bowed to Liam. Walter, the driver, was already waiting by the car and opened the rear door, gesturing for him to get in. Liam nodded, said nothing, and ducked into the car. As the car pulled away from the Landon estate, many reporters were still gathered outside, talking amongst themselves. Liam saw several black-suited bodyguards maintaining order at the main gate. The media blitz for this story was truly massive. Liam leaned back against the seat and closed his eyes. The drive was silent. After an hour and a half, they arrived at the Thorn estate. Walter rolled down the window, nodded to the gate guards, and was waved through. This was Liam's first time at the main Thorn compound. The estate was so vast he couldn't see the end of it. The drive from the gate to the main villa alone took a full 10 minutes. It was even more magnificent than Cassandra's Black Lake Manor. If this weren't all happening to him, he would never have believed he'd one day set foot in a place like this. Compared to the Thorns, the Landon estate was less than half the size. Walter was clearly familiar with the place. He expertly navigated the winding drive and pulled up to the front of the villa. "Young master, we're here. I'll be waiting in the car for you," he murmured, getting out to open Liam's door. Two bodyguards emerged from the villa and bowed to Liam. "Young Master Landon, the master and madam have been waiting for you in the living room." Liam nodded, got out of the car, and followed them inside. He stepped into the grand hall, and before he could even take in his surroundings, an elegant woman in a stunning, form-fitting black silk dress came gliding toward him. She took his hand with a radiant smile. "I knew this boy had potential. Honey, come look. He's built just like you were back in the day." Liam's mouth twitched. He followed her gaze into the main lounge. A middle-aged man sat on the sofa, his expression grave, his sharp eyes sweeping over Liam, a gaze so piercing it felt as if it saw right through him. The pressure was immediate and immense. It didn't take a genius to figure out these were Cassandra's parents. Liam, ever polite, bowed to them. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorn, it's a pleasure. I'm Liam." He didn't introduce himself as the Landon heir. The gesture caught Catherine Thorn's attention, and her eyes lit up. The title Mrs. Thorn had clearly struck a chord. She giggled, her eyes full of approval, and pulled him further into the room. "Come, sit down, child. What can I get you to drink? I'll have the housekeeper prepare it." Noticing the middle-aged woman waiting nearby, Liam said humbly, "Just water is fine." "Thank you, Mrs. Thorn." Of course." Catherine Thorn smiled and gave the order. As he sat on the sofa, Liam felt a prickling sensation all over his body. From the moment he had entered, the man's scrutinizing gaze had never left him. Not even Lawrence Landon had exuded such a powerful, oppressive aura. Liam narrowed his eyes, trying to think of an opening line that wouldn't fall flat. But Catherine sat down beside him and slapped her husband's arm playfully. "Honey, you were so eager to meet the boy. Why aren't you saying anything?" Liam's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively looked up and met Caleb Thorne's eyes. That gaze was like a laser, boring straight into him. In that instant, Liam knew this man would not be easy to deal with. Or rather, he would not be easy to talk to. He was right. Caleb Thorne's deep, furious voice finally broke the silence. So, you're the punk who seduced my daughter? Huh? Liam froze, staring at Caleb in utter disbelief. Me? Caleb's sharp eyes raked over him, making Liam's scalp tingle. He felt as if at any second he would be dragged out and beaten to death. Wait, what does he mean, seduced? I didn't know such thing. Don't just make things up. That wasn't seduction. It was Cassandra who had abducted him, who had given him no room to breathe. He was the victim here. Liam was about to explain when Caleb's grim voice thundered again. You still have a nerve to sit there? The words were laced with rage. He stared at Liam, and in the next second, he roared, Kneel. The command was like an earthquake, the sound shaking the entire hall. Catherine Thorne flinched, about to speak, but Caleb's venomous voice cut her off. Don't you dare say a word for him. Catherine snapped her mouth shut, looking at Liam with terrified eyes. Two pairs of eyes were now fixed on him, pressing down like two mountains. Liam narrowed his own. He took a deep breath, and when he opened his eyes again, they were fearless. He sat up straighter and looked directly at Caleb Thorne. Mr. Thorne, I believe you're mistaken. I did not seduce your daughter. Insolence. Are you implying my daughter seduced you? You're a grown man. Have you no sense of responsibility? If Liam had thought Caleb was just testing him before, this was different. The rage was raw, unrestrained. It felt as if Caleb would have him dragged out and killed if he dared to answer yes. But Liam had always been direct. He had no power, no real assets besides his face and his physique. All he had was his life. Between groveling for survival and deliberate flattery, he would always choose to follow his own heart. Meeting Caleb's furious gaze, Liam's expression was open and honest. Please don't confuse the issue, Mr. Thorne. This has nothing to do with responsibility. If you intend to attack me on those grounds, I see no point in this conversation. Because your attacks are meaningless to me. I have no power to fight back. He had done nothing wrong. The truth was whatever Caleb Thorne decided it was. But one thing was certain. He would not accept any form of moral blackmail. In that instant, Caleb Thorne knew what it felt like to punch a fistful of cotton. He had expected Liam to fight back, or to kneel as commanded. He would have admired the former and despised the latter. But this cool, detached response, it was a path he had never considered. This kid was slippery. Caleb raised a cold eyebrow, his anger still simmering. Are you not afraid I'll have my men drag you out and torture you? If that were to happen, Liam said with a sudden smile, it would be quite entertaining. The great Thorne family, beating up the newly returned heir of the Landon family. He looked directly at Caleb, his tone becoming almost playful. So, what you're saying is, my life is equal to the reputation of the Thorne family. The atmosphere in the grand hall instantly dropped to freezing. Catherine Thorne stared at Liam, a flicker of genuine surprise in her eyes. She hadn't expected him to say something so blunt. Caleb Thorne, too, looked at him with a sense of disbelief, not at Liam's defiant tone, but at the meaning behind his words. So, you believe the Thorne family's reputation is more important than your life? Caleb pressed, his voice tight. He leaned forward, his gaze locking onto Liam, demanding an answer. Isn't it? Liam countered, his eyes holding no fear. I'm not under any illusion that I'm that valuable. You've been brought back to the Landon family now, Caleb reminded him, his stare intensifying. And what do the Landons have to do with me? Liam scoffed. They toss me out when it's convenient and drag me back when they need something. Why the hell would I be grateful for that? The conversation died right there. Caleb took a deep, steadying breath, the anger that had been simmering within him vanishing completely. He gave Liam a long, searching look, then turned to his wife. Catherine, darling, why don't you go check on how lunch is coming along? Catherine looked like she wanted to argue, but one look from Caleb, and she understood. She nodded. All right. After she left, Caleb's gaze returned to Liam. The calculating scrutiny was gone, replaced by something that looked unervingly like sorrow. Come with me, son. He rose slowly and walked toward his study. Liam frowned, confused by the sudden shift in Caleb's demeanor, but he said nothing. He simply stood and followed him into the richly appointed study. Sensing Liam's tension, Caleb offered a faint, disarming smile. Relax. You can let your guard down in here. I'm not going to eat you. The change in his tone was so drastic, it was jarring. It was as if Caleb had already accepted him. Liam let out a quiet breath and inclined his head slightly. Mr. Thorne, my apologies. I was out of line earlier. His ability to be respectful without being subservient clearly impressed Caleb. After closing the heavy oak door to the study, Caleb turned back to him, his expression mild. You don't seem to place much value on your own life, do you, son? The question caught Liam off guard. and a look of surprise crossed his face. That's not a good way to be, Caleb continued softly. Your life is the most precious thing you have. You need to cherish it, not destroy it, or use it as a bargaining chip. Caleb's words struck a nerve, hitting a truth Liam had long buried. For so long, he had projected an image of someone carefree and unafraid, but in reality, every step he took was a desperate, all-or-nothing gamble. Damn, Liam thought. Experience always wins. But still, why are you telling me all this? He asked. Caleb's smile was sudden and warm, and the look he gave Liam was now filled with an almost paternal affection, tinged with a deep, echoing memory. No reason, just a reminder to love yourself. Otherwise, your father would be very disappointed. My father. Liam froze, the words leaving his mouth before he could stop them. You knew my father? Knew him. A shadow of grief passed over Caleb's face. We were more than just acquaintances. He walked over to a towering bookshelf, twisted a hidden mechanism on the side, and a small, square drawer popped out from the top. He reached up, pulled out a worn photo album, and handed it to Liam. Years ago, your father and I were guardians on the frontier together. Liam took the album. The moment he opened it, he saw a younger Caleb Thorne standing next to a young man with eyes strikingly similar to his own. Below the photograph, a name was written in neat cursive. Victor Lynn. His squad was wiped out in a firefight while covering my team's retreat, Caleb said, his voice heavy. This was the last thing he had on him. He held out two simple, hand-braided leather bracelets. He bought these at market near our post. A gift he never got the chance to mail. They've been waiting all this time. Hearing this for the first time, Liam felt a strange numbness. These are people he'd never met. Beyond a sudden, sharp acceleration of his heartbeat, his mind latched onto a different detail. People from the Thorne family have to serve in the military? Caleb had expected a more emotional reaction, maybe even tears. Liam's analytical leap caught him off guard, and for a second he struggled to keep up. He gave Liam a deep look before explaining. It's a family tradition. A rite of passage, you could say. You don't have to do it, but you don't earn your place without it. He glanced toward the door, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. And besides, it was your Aunt Catherine who talked me into it. Oh, Liam said, nodding. He flipped through a few more pages of the album before closing it. In that case, Mr. Thorne, did you? Before he could finish, Caleb cut him off. Call me uncle. What's with all the formality? Liam's mouth twitched, but he complied. All right, then. Uncle Caleb, did you ever try to find me or my biological mother afterward? Of course, we did, Caleb said, his gaze turning distant. By the time we found your mother, she was suffering from severe psychological trauma. To avoid making it worse, we could only support her family, and your sister from the shadows. As for you, he paused, his voice thick with regret. Son, after I came back from my last tour, I had people searching for you for 12 straight years. He didn't need to say more. Liam already knew the outcome. The whole story was finally clicking into place. The only thing he couldn't figure out was how the Landons had managed to hide him from the Thorne family's reach, but that was all in the past. He had no desire to rehash it. Silently, he took one of the leather bracelets and tied it around his wrist. Watching him, Caleb smiled, a look of genuine warmth on his face. He stepped forward and clapped a hand on Liam's shoulder. Son, he said, his voice full of relief, from now on, the Thorne family is your family. If you need anything, you just come to your uncle. The implication was unmistakable. Before Liam could fully process it, Caleb was leading him out of the study. In the dining room, Catherine had already instructed the staff to set the table for lunch. When she saw her husband walking out with his arm around Liam's, looking as close as old friends, a wide grin spread across her face. Well, she teased. Just a little while ago, you wouldn't even let me get a word in, and now you two are the best of friends. The tense atmosphere from before had completely evaporated. Caleb hurried over to Catherine and put his hands on her shoulders. My dearest wife, I was wrong. I promise I'll never be harsh with you again. Catherine crossed her arms with a playful pout. Oomph. Who would believe a smooth talker like you? What if I take you to Iceland next week? We could go sledding. Now that's more like it. Watching this sickeningly sweet display, Liam felt a muscle in his jaw twitch. As if suddenly remembering they had an audience, Catherine's face flushed a delicate pink. She turned to Liam with a bright smile. Liam, please sit down. Don't be so formal. Make yourself at home. Yes, sit. Caleb nodded enthusiastically. The warmth of it all was disarming, and Liam felt something in his chest loosen. He nodded and, without further ceremony, took a seat at the table. As a server began to place food on his plate, Catherine's voice rang out again, her words causing Liam, who had just picked up his fork, to freeze solid. So, Liam dear, Did your Uncle Caleb happen to mention when you and our daughter are getting engaged? An image of Cassandra's face flashed through Liam's mind, and a chill ran down his spine. Caleb shot Liam a knowing look before turning to his wife with a laugh. Honey, don't be in such a rush. He's here now. It's not like he can run away, right? He said it with a smile, but his eyes never left Liam, circling him like a predator sizing up its prey. The intensity of it made Liam's scalp tingle. Catherine pouted playfully. How can I not be in a rush? Our daughter has been running wild for years. Now that she's finally found someone she likes, don't tell me her own father is getting jealous. Of course not. Caleb chuckled, turning his now eager gaze back to Liam. So, Liam, how did you and my daughter meet? You two kept it under wraps so well. Liam swallowed hard, not daring to even touch his fork now. Facing the curious stares of Cassandra's parents, he answered carefully, It was. On a rainy night, I was kidnapped by your daughter, he left unsaid. You couldn't exactly drop that bombshell in front of a potential mother and father-in-law. Then it must be fate. Catherine's eyes sparkled, as if she were reliving her own youth. Your Uncle Caleb and I met at a racetrack. His driving was terrible. He could never beat me. Caleb didn't say a word, just watched his wife's proud expression with eyes full of adoration. Seeing firsthand how loving and playful Cassandra's parents were, Liam found it hard to reconcile. How could a family like this have raised someone as cold, arrogant, and frankly, unhinged as Cassandra? He couldn't hold back any longer. Uncle Caleb, Mrs. Thorne, I don't have any plans to get married right now. He knew he shouldn't say it, but he had to. Looking at Caleb and Catherine, it was obvious that when two people were in love, being together was bliss. But if they weren't, it was a prison. And even if they were in love, happiness was never guaranteed. The odds were too slim, and more importantly, he didn't like Cassandra. At best, she was an acquaintance. Feelings couldn't be forced. Hearing this, Catherine's expression soured. Liam, you're about the same age as our daughter. If you marry her, the Thorne family will be your rock. She paused, her eyes narrowing. Or is it that you think our daughter isn't good enough for you? The temperature in the room plummeted. No, that's not it, Mrs. Thorne. You've misunderstood, Liam said quickly. Before he could finish, Caleb cut in. Honey, don't jump to conclusions. I don't think that's what Liam meant. He gestured for the nearby server to step away, then fixed his gaze on Liam. The message was clear. He was waiting for an explanation. Liam knew this day would come sooner or later. He took a deep breath, stood up, and bowed slightly to them both, his voice steady and fearless. I don't believe in forced relationships. I don't feel I'm in any position to love anyone right now, nor do I want the distraction. Please, Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, I hope you can understand. This time, he used their formal titles, making it clear he wasn't trying to be chummy. But his words made Caleb's eyes darken. But, Catherine started to say, only to be cut off by her husband. Catherine, he said her name softly, then shook his head slightly before looking back at Liam. Let's eat first. After lunch, have Lily pick out a few outfits for you. You've only just returned to the Landon family. Things must be inconvenient. If you need anything, just ask her. Yes. Catherine nodded, her expression softening as she looked at Liam with a new wave of sympathy. You must be exhausted after being on your own for so long. Let's not talk about it anymore. Eat. After you're done, take a nice long bath and get a good night's sleep. Liam looked up, genuinely touched. When he had returned to the Landon estate, his grandfather hadn't mistreated him, but everything had been framed through the lens of what was best for the Landon family. Here, in the Thorne home, a place he'd never been, they were concerned about him. Even if it was because of his father, it was still a kindness he hadn't expected. This was the legacy his father's sacrifice had created for him. It was only right that he accepted. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, Liam replied formally, sitting back down and starting to eat. Across the table, Catherine watched him, repeatedly opening her mouth to speak, only to be silenced by a look from Caleb. She was practically bursting with unsaid words. After Liam had finished and left the room, Catherine could hold it in no longer. Honey, what was that all about? I think the boy is wonderful. He's polite. He knows his boundaries. Our Riley is a whirlwind. She needs someone like Liam to balance her out. They'd be so perfect together. Why didn't you let me finish what I was saying? Before she could continue her rant, Caleb reached out and playfully flicked her forehead. Catherine, have all those vacations melted your brain? He said, his eyes full of affection. Did you not see that the boy is emotionally walled off? Catherine fell silent. Caleb sighed. I spoke with him in the study earlier. His issues are the same as Cassandra's. You mean? Catherine's face went pale. She half covered her mouth, looking at her husband in disbelief. Do you remember what happened to Cassandra when she was 7? How she changed after that. How could I forget? The memory was a painful one Catherine rarely revisited. A shadow of grief crossed her features. Why are you bringing that up? Don't tell me Liam also. No, Caleb said, shaking his head. They're opposites. After that incident, Cassandra learned to seize control through extreme measures. Liam, on the other hand, runs from everything. But they have one thing in common, Caleb continued. They both view relationships as transactions, weighing the costs and benefits. He paused, a thoughtful smile appearing on his face. You know, I actually think they're a good match. He looked at his wife. And I really do think Liam is a good kid. Think about it. When the Hamiltons kicked him out, he didn't seek revenge. That shows he knows gratitude. Later, when they kept coming after him, he fought back with evidence and completely blindsided them. That shows he's capable. If a girl like Riley were to marry him, it might even ground her, maybe even help her sister out and take some of the weight off Cassandra's shoulders. Hearing this, Catherine smiled too. After all that, I was starting to think you didn't approve. But those emotional walls won't be easy to break down. Cassandra is still the same after all these years. We'll take it one step at a time. Cassandra has her own destiny. As parents, all we can do is our best, Caleb replied, rubbing his wife's back reassuringly. Still, this is going to be difficult, Catherine fretted, her brow furrowed. Then, an idea struck her. I know. I'll call Riley right now and tell her to come home for dinner. We can talk, then let the two of them have some time alone. That should work, right? Good idea, Caleb agreed, then added, and tell Cassandra to come home, too, if she has time. She should meet her potential brother-in-law. Done. Catherine nodded, a determined smile on her face as she went to make the calls. Liam had intended to leave right after lunch. It felt wrong to be showering and staying over in someone else's home, especially since he wasn't even part of their family. But before he could reach the front door, a woman with a warm smile intercepted him. She handed him a tablet. Young master, these are the latest menswear collections. Just add what you like to the cart, and it will be delivered, the aide, Lily, explained. Liam glanced at the tablet and shook his head. Thank you, Lily, but I should be heading back. Please tell Mr. and Mrs. Thorne that I'll visit again when I have the chance. He spoke politely, without any of the arrogance of a young heir, which clearly impressed Lily. Sir, the master and mistress have already instructed that you are to stay the night, she said quickly. Stay the night, Liam exclaimed. That doesn't seem appropriate, does it? He was a Landon, just recently returned to the family, spending his first night back at the Thorne compound. Don't worry, sir. Mr. Landon has already agreed. Your driver, Walter, has returned to the estate to inform him. She effectively blocked any avenue of escape. Liam was taken aback by their overwhelming hospitality. Since his protests were useless, he had no choice but to nod and accept the tablet. All right, then. He opened the shopping app. It was a simulator displaying the latest in haute couture, with average prices well into the six figures. The money in his bank account was pocket change by comparison, but his desires were different. He had no real interest in luxury goods. He scrolled through, picked a few simple, understated items, and handed the tablet back to Lily. She glanced at his selections, a look of surprise crossing her face, which quickly turned to admiration. She smiled, closed the tablet, and said respectfully, Young master, you can go ahead and bathe now. The clothes will be delivered shortly. There was nothing more for Liam to say. He just nodded. Okay, Black Lake Manor. It was a rare occasion for both young mistresses of the house to be home for a meal. In the villa, Maria and a dozen other staff members bustled about, the scale of the preparation immense. In the middle of the meal, Riley's phone rang. Cassandra glanced up. It's Mom, Riley muttered with a hint of annoyance, then answered the call. What? I'm at Sis's place right now. Come home tonight? Do I have to? A surprise? Her tone shifted. Fine, as long as it's not one of your jump scares. Okay, I know. She hung up and saw Cassandra watching her out of the corner of her eye. Riley pouted. Mom says she has a surprise for me. She also said if you have time, you should come back with me. She sighed dramatically, slumping in her chair. Why did Mom and Dad have to come back now? Weren't they on vacation somewhere? Cassandra said nothing, quietly eating her food as she watched her sister's theatrics. After her performance, Riley picked at her food, looking at her older sister with pleading eyes. Sis, can you please come back with me? I'm afraid Mom's going to pull some weird stunt to freak me out. Cassandra gave her a cool glance, set down her fork, and elegantly took a sip of water before dabbing her lips with a napkin. Sis, please come with me. Dad will definitely be there too, and I'm scared. Riley put down her utensils, pressing her hands together in a desperate plea. It has been a while since I've seen them, Cassandra said, her voice a low murmur. She glanced at Maria, Prepare the car. We'll leave this afternoon. Yes, miss, Maria replied. Riley's face lit up. Thank you, sis. I love you the most. She jumped up to give Cassandra a bear hug, but Cassandra deftly shifted her chair back on its casters, causing Riley to lose her balance. She stumbled, catching herself on the table at the last second. The surrounding staff didn't even blink, clearly accustomed to such scenes. Riley just gave her sister a sheepish grin. Cassandra's expression remained cold. She crossed one leg elegantly over the other, her eyes sharp with a warning. Don't disappoint me at the gala in a few days. No problem, no problem. Don't you worry, sis. Riley chirped happily. After the meal, Cassandra went to her private office. She dealt with a few digital files, then picked up a paper contract from her desk. As she did, an image of Liam flashed in her mind. In the hotel on Solitude Key, he had sat quietly beside her like this, occasionally discussing clauses in the contract. When she got tired, he would pick up a pastry from the table and carefully, so carefully, hold it to her lips. Unconsciously, she raised a hand to her own lips. The moment her fingertips made contact with her skin, she snapped back to reality. The room was empty. There was no Liam, no gentle warmth. A heavy glass paperweight sat on the desk, the one she'd had him handle. It still bore the faint trace of his fingerprint. He had promised he would never leave her. Cassandra felt a wave of dizziness. She propped her head on her hand, her gaze fixed on her phone screen, where a perfect photo of his profile was set as her wallpaper. A slow smile spread across her face, but her eyes blazed with an unprecedented, predatory light. You can't run away, my pretty thing, she whispered. In this life, you can only belong to me. After his shower, Liam, wrapped in a plush robe, was napping in the room Lily had prepared for him. He was sleeping soundly when a sudden, violent tremor ran through his body, jolting him awake. He sat up, staring at his own hand, which felt strangely numb. A look of disbelief washed over his face. Was it a dream? He couldn't be sure. In the dream, he had been strapped to a wooden frame, his hands and feet bound in shackles, spread-eagled. Then came the electricity, 1,000 needles of white-hot agony coursing through him. And all the while, a man's voice echoed nearby. He couldn't make out the words, but the dream had felt terrifyingly real. The desire to sleep was gone. Liam rolled onto his side, reflexively reaching for his phone on the nightstand before remembering it was still with the reality show's production crew. Now that he was off the show, being without a phone was unnerving. After hesitating for a moment, he got up and opened the bedroom door. Young master, is there anything you need? A maid was clearing a table in the second-floor living area. She saw him and asked respectfully. Liam scratched his head. Do you have a spare phone or something? I forgot to bring mine. Please wait a moment, young master. I'll go prepare one for you, the maid replied before leaving with her tray. A few minutes later, she returned with a brand-new, top-of-the-line smartphone. Without a SIM card, he couldn't use his usual messaging apps, but he managed to log into his old, long-neglected Facebook account through an email verification. He hadn't used it since he started working, and his contact list was a ghost town of old acquaintances. As soon as he logged in, a few red notification dots appeared, all spam from marketing bots and junk mail. As he was clearing them, he noticed dozens of messages from someone named Zoe. Liam, why isn't your number working? Get back to me ASAP. Your sister is in trouble. It's an emergency. Liam, please reply. The messages flooded the chat window. Liam, half lying on the bed, scrolled through them. He vaguely remembered Zoe. She was one of Penelope Hamilton's best friends from when they studied abroad together. For Zoe to be this frantic, something serious must have happened to Penelope. The messages were all from the past few days. Liam raised an eyebrow, a flicker of morbid curiosity about the Hamiltons' latest disaster piquing his interest. But he didn't reply. He wasn't one to meddle. After a brief scan, he closed the app and started scrolling through short-form videos. He was in a 5-star environment. The last thing he needed was to invite trouble. Just as he got comfortable, a call notification popped up on his screen. It was a messenger call from Zoe. Liam had no intention of answering. He tried to swipe the call away, but his thumb slipped and he accidentally hit the decline button. The action instantly notified Zoe that he was online. Immediately, a new barrage of messages appeared. Liam, why aren't you answering? Your sister is in trouble. Answer me. His patience worn thin, Liam opened Messenger, ready to block and delete her to get some peace, but her next message made him pause. Your sister was tricked by some people. They're holding her at a film set. Our semester is almost over, and her visa is about to expire. Tricked or not, Liam didn't care. But the words film set caught his attention. He opened the chat and typed 2 words. Film set, you finally replied. Let's talk on the phone. It's too complicated to type. Zoe sent back, immediately followed by another call. This time, curiosity got the better of him, and he answered. Liam, Penelope's been scammed. You have to do something. Zoe's voice came through, choked with sobs. Liam's expression didn't change. What happened? He asked coolly. Zoe sniffled, her story tumbling out in broken pieces. There was an ad at school saying you could get paid for acting. Penelope ran out of money, and you guys never sent her anymore, so she took the job, and it turns out the film set was for one of those group scenes. Her voice faltered. After she filmed the first scene, those people wouldn't pay her. Now, they're holding her there, saying she has to film 3 more movies before she gets any money. But her visa is about to expire, and they said they have ways to keep her here, even if it does. They won't let her go. Liam was silent for a moment. Though she was being vague, he was an adult. He understood exactly what she was implying. After the Hamiltons' downfall, he had expected Penelope would run out of cash and come crawling back sooner or later. But he'd never imagined she'd resort to acting in that kind of film. The industry was shady enough in the States, let alone overseas. How could she be so naive? At that moment, he didn't feel pity or urgency. He just found it darkly amusing. The 3 Hamilton sisters were completely useless. It had only been a few months since he'd left, and they were all acting like overgrown children with no common sense. It seemed he'd protected them too well. Sensing his silence, Zoe grew frantic. Liam, you have to think of something, she yelled into the phone. Something? A humorless laugh escaped him. What am I supposed to do? She's the one who chose to do the film, wasn't she? No, Penelope was tricked. Zoe's voice lost its conviction. Tricked? Liam's tone was cold steel. Let me ask you something. Did she not know what she was getting into before she filmed that first scene? Well, Zoe was stumped. It was true. They just hadn't expected the producers to withhold payment and demand more work. Hearing her hesitate, Liam knew the whole story. She was chasing a get-rich-quick fantasy, he continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Who could have possibly scammed her if she wasn't already dreaming of a payday? And how come, out of all the people there, she was the only one who fell for it? You. Zoe's brain short-circuited. She was left speechless. She knew the deal and still went through with it. What good is it for you to beg me now? In case you forgot, I walked away from that family with nothing. Zoe was completely stunned. She never thought Liam could be so cruel. Liam, how can you say that? Penelope is your sister. Not my problem. Liam cut her off. I'm hanging up. Don't call again. Wait. Liam, at least transfer some money. Penelope borrowed from me last month and still hasn't paid me back. Beep, beep, beep. The line went dead. Zoe stared at her phone in disbelief. She looked over at Penelope, who was lying weakly on the bed, and a surge of anger washed over her. Penelope, didn't you say your brother would send money? Well, he's not helping you either. You need to pack your things and get out. You can't stay here anymore. Impossible. Liam would never abandon me. Penelope struggled to sit up, her eyes wide with shock. Give me the phone. I'll talk to him. Talk about what? He blocked me. Zoe snapped, glancing at her phone. Penelope, get your stuff and get out of my apartment. And take all the things you used with you. Zoe, how could you? I have no money, and those people have my passport and visa. What am I supposed to do? I thought we were best friends. You have a nerve to talk about being friends? I'll lend you thousands of dollars and let you stay here, and now I'm the bad guy. You, get out now, before I call the police. Dragged out of Zoe's apartment building, Penelope collapsed onto a landing in the stairwell, her suitcase beside her. Her family's numbers wouldn't connect. Her last hope had abandoned her. And now, her best friend had kicked her out. She didn't understand how everything had gone so wrong. Her phone screen lit up with breaking news notifications. Pictures of Liam's triumphant return to the powerful Landon family plastered all over the internet. The sight crushed her completely. With his status now, he could save her with a snap of his fingers, but he wouldn't lift one. Back then, Jason had only slandered him. If Liam had the evidence, why didn't he just produce it sooner? Why did he have to wait until they were on the brink of ruin? Liam, she thought, despair turning to bitter resentment. You were so cruel. So, it was about money after all. Liam closed Facebook with a cynical smirk. In this world, even childhood friends would betray you. What could you expect from a college acquaintance? As for Penelope being scammed, that had nothing to do with him. It was the path she had chosen. If there was one thing Liam had learned, it was this: respect people's choices, even the disastrous ones, and let go of the need to be a savior. He'd help someone, sure, but only if he saw value in it. The world didn't hand out free lunches. People were strange. They lied to themselves all the time, yet somehow expected others to be honest. He shrugged, opened a video app, and burrowed back under the covers. The afternoon passed quickly. Hearing footsteps outside his door, Liam glanced at the time. 6:00 p.m. He stretched, got out of bed, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window to watch the sunset. The Thorne estate was immense. A massive fountain with a giant sculpture dominated the view, surrounded by manicure gardens where several landscapers were working. From his window, he could see nearly half of the sprawling compound. After a few minutes, he turned to leave, but the sight of two cars pulling up the long driveway made him freeze. He watched intently as they approached and stopped in front of the villa. The two people who stepped out sent a jolt of ice through his veins. It was Cassandra and Riley. In that instant, he understood. The Thornes hadn't just invited him to dinner. They had set him up. They were pushing for an engagement, and now they had summoned both their daughters. He had to go down there and set the record straight, or this would spiral out of control. His heart pounded. He quickly changed his clothes and headed downstairs. In the foyer, he saw Cassandra and Riley walking in. "Hey, big brother Liam, what are you doing here?" Riley's face lit up with a huge grin, and she bounced over to him, her eyes wide with curiosity. Cassandra, however, merely lifted an eyebrow, her initial surprise vanishing as quickly as it appeared. She handed her purse to a maid and glided over to the living room sofa with an air of regal indifference. She sat down, took a cup of tea from a tray offered by another servant, and took a delicate sip. Every movement was a blend of aristocratic grace and dangerous charm. Her gaze swept past Liam, and the casual chill in her eyes made the hair on his arms stand up. Seeing that Liam was ignoring her, Riley tilted her head, following his line of sight to where Cassandra sat. A knowing smile spread across her face, and she called out again, her voice deliberately sweet. "Big brother Liam?" Pulled from his thoughts, Liam blinked and turned to her. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the Landon estate?" Riley asked, her face tilted up to his, full of innocent curiosity. Liam glanced at Cassandra, who was pretending to ignore him but was clearly watching his every move. He took a deep breath. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorne invited me. Mom and Dad invited you and didn't tell me." Riley exclaimed, then had a sudden thought. "Sis, you don't think the surprise Mom was talking about is Liam, do you?" Cassandra didn't answer, her cold eyes fixed on the two of them, an unreadable emotion swirling in their depths. "Wait, that doesn't make sense," Riley muttered to herself. "If it's a surprise, it should be for you, sis. Why would she say it was for me?" Before she could puzzle it out, the elevator doors at the end of the hall slid open, and Catherine emerged, beaming. "My darlings, Mommy missed you so much." Catherine hurried forward, about to hug Riley. But the second she spotted Liam standing nearby, her smile vanished, and her expression became stern. "Liam, what are you doing out here?" she demanded, her tone implying he should be hidden away somewhere. And dressed so casually? This was supposed to be a grand reunion. He should have been dressed for the occasion. The sudden shift in Catherine's demeanor sent a jolt of unease through Riley. She swallowed nervously. "Mom," she asked cautiously, "what's the surprise you prepared for me?" Catherine's stern face melted back into a teasing smile. She patted Riley's head. "You'll find out later, sweetie." Then she turned to Cassandra, her voice tinged with mock sadness. "Cassie, it's been so long since you've seen your mother. Aren't you going to give me a hug?" Cassandra, seemingly used to this, looked at her mother with a cool, detached expression. She continued to sip her tea, her dark, clear eyes reflecting the flickering flames of the fireplace, though her gaze remained as cold as ice. Seeing this, a flicker of disappointment crossed Catherine's face. She forced a smile. "Well, your father will be home soon. We'll talk at dinner." She turned her attention back to Liam. "Liam, come on. Annie will help you pick out an outfit. You're the heir to a great family now. You can't go around dressed like this." Without giving him a chance to refuse, she marched toward the elevator and beckoned for him to follow. In front of him stood Riley, bursting with questions. To his side, Cassandra watched him like a hawk. Trapped, Liam took a deep breath and, steeling himself, followed Catherine into the elevator. As Liam and her mother disappeared into the elevator, Riley's eyelid began to twitch violently. She had a terrible feeling about this. Ever since they'd become adults, her parents had spent most of their time traveling, rarely coming home. But now, they had returned at a very opportune moment, and Liam, who should have been at the Landon estate, was here in their home. Riley licked her lips nervously. "Sis," she whispered, a sense of dread creeping into her voice. "Do you think Mom's surprise is actually for you?" Cassandra didn't reply, just continued to sip her tea with regal aloofness. Riley scurried over to her sister's side. Sis, she said, her voice dropping even lower. Do you think Mom and Dad saw the show? The one with me and Liam. At this, Cassandra's posture went rigid. A low-pressure system instantly descended upon the room. Her fingers tightened on the handle of her teacup, and her eyes, sharp as daggers, sliced across to Riley, radiating a bone-chilling cold. The look terrified Riley. Her face went white, and she stammered out an explanation. Sis, don't get the wrong idea. I have absolutely no feelings for Liam, I swear. I just admire him. As she pleaded, Cassandra's eyes darkened, a raw, possessive fire swirling in their depths. You have to believe me. Riley was panicking now. She held up her hands, her heart pounding. I'm completely innocent. I honestly want him to be my brother-in-law. Cassandra stared at her sister, her expression unreadable. She raised an eyebrow, swallowed her tea, and spoke, her tone frigid. You'd better be telling the truth. Of course I am. Riley insisted. When have you ever seen me alone with him? Besides, sis, I'm your wing woman. And it was true. At first, her interest in Liam had been pure curiosity. She wanted to know why her sister, who had never shown an interest in any man, was so fixated on this one. When she first met him, she thought he was just a handsome, amusing guy, fun to be around, but not nearly in her sister's league. But that changed on the yacht. The emptiness in his eyes, the detached, all-seeing indifference. It was a level of existence she had never encountered. From that moment, Riley knew Liam was different. No wonder he had hooked her sister. Of course, she didn't say any of this out loud. Not because she didn't want to, but because the look her sister was giving her was sharp enough to draw blood. Just a few seconds of eye contact, and beads of cold sweat were forming on her forehead. She hadn't felt this kind of pressure since she was a child and got caught playing with the official corporate seal. Cassandra slowly set her teacup down and rose to her feet. Sis, where are you going? I'll come with you. Riley scrambled up, terrified of another misunderstanding happening in her absence. Her sister's oppressive aura was no joke. In that short moment, she'd already imagined several gruesome ways she might die. The dressing room, Cassandra said coolly. I'm coming with you. Riley followed closely behind, patting her chest. Don't worry, sis. I'll get Mom out of there and explain everything. It'll give you two some alone time. Cassandra glanced at her sister out of the corner of her eye, but said nothing more. They stopped at the elevator, where a maid had already pressed the button for their floor. A few seconds later, the doors opened on the third-floor wardrobe level. Just as they stepped out, they heard Catherine's voice. This one looks so much better. Liam, you don't have to be so polite. These are all your Uncle Caleb's old clothes. You're about the same size, just wear them. Riley's eyes darted to Cassandra, who hadn't moved. Sis, let me handle this, she whispered. She knocked on the dressing room door and pulled it open a crack. Riley, you're here? Catherine greeted them with a smile. Seeing both her daughters at the door, her eyes crinkled into a happy line. You're in such a hurry. Mom was just helping your future P5.She. Before she could finish the sentence, a horrified Riley clapped a hand over her mother's mouth. Beside her, Cassandra's face was a cold, unreadable mask, but her eyes were scanning the room, searching for him. Oh my God, she almost got me killed, Riley thought, trembling. She grabbed her mother's arm and pulled her out of the room. Mom, come out here. I have to talk to you about something urgent. P5. You child. Catherine's muffled protests came through Riley's fingers as she was dragged away. Sis. Riley shot her sister a desperate, meaningful look. Cassandra met her gaze, then, under Catherine's bewildered stare, pushed the door open and strode into the dressing room, as if she owned the place. Riley quickly shut the door behind her. Turning to her mother, Riley let out an exasperated sigh. Mom, what the hell are you doing? You almost got me killed. Catherine pointed at the dressing room, then back at Riley, a look of shock on her face. Riley, don't tell me. You and your sister. You both like Liam? Faced with Riley's stunned expression, Catherine became frantic. Oh, this won't do. I mean, our family can certainly handle it. But this is too scandalous. Your mother does not approve. Mom, you... Riley's expression shifted from fear to sheer speechlessness. She stared at her mother and finally managed to grit out, You really need to stop reading so many romance novels. You're a grown woman. They're rotting your brain. Inside the dressing room, Cassandra didn't have to walk far before she saw Liam standing in front of a full-length mirror. He was wearing a crisp, exquisitely tailored white shirt. The stark white cuffs were visible as he adjusted the buttons at his collar, two boat-shaped diamond cufflinks glinting in the light. He stood there, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, streaming through the window. The slightly sheer fabric hinted at the powerful, lean muscles of his upper body, a potent, restrained strength. He was undeniably handsome. Even cheap clothes couldn't hide it, but in this bespoke suit, the subtle shimmer of the fabric radiated an air of nobility. This cool, refined man was a world away from the student she imagined he once was. Or maybe he had always been this elegant. Sensing an intense gaze on him, Liam turned. He saw Cassandra leaning against the doorframe, dressed in a simple black dress, her eyes burning with a feverish heat. "What are you doing here?" he asked, startled. He meant it was awkward. He was changing, and her mother was right outside. A slow smile curled Cassandra's lips as she advanced toward him. "Is there anywhere in this house I can't go?" This was her home. Of course, she could go wherever she pleased. She had clearly misunderstood him. "I know," Liam explained, "but I'm changing and—" He gestured vaguely toward the door, which was slightly ajar. He could still hear the faint murmur of Catherine and Riley's voices. This wasn't right. Cassandra didn't even bother to look. She walked straight up to him, her gaze fixed on his throat before slowly trailing down. She raised a hand and touched the tie at his collar. "Idiot," she murmured with a fond smile, more to herself than to him. "That's not how you tie a tie." Her voice was laced with a teasing quality as she deftly undid his clumsy knot. Her small, cool hands rested against his neck, a light, careful touch that occasionally brushed against his skin. It tickled. Liam couldn't help it. His Adam's apple bobbed. He looked down and saw the intense focus in her eyes. "I don't usually wear a tie with a suit," he explained lamely, glancing nervously toward the door. Cassandra didn't respond. Her hands moved with practiced ease, readying the knot. As she pulled it taut in the final motion, her gaze lifted to meet his. She saw his distracted stare, and her expression soured. She yanked the tie sharply downwards. "Did I say you get distracted?" she purred, her eyes blazing with anger. Liam was forced to bow his head, meeting her gaze. "Miss Thorne, your mother and sister are P.She." He never finished the sentence. She crushed her lips against his. Liam's eyes widened in shock. He couldn't believe how bold she was. The door wasn't even closed. The kiss ended. Cassandra raised a single eyebrow, licking her lips as if savoring the taste. "Get distracted again," she threatened in a low, husky voice, "and I'll continue." Does she have no sense of time or place? Liam swallowed hard, his mind still reeling. "I was wrong," he heard himself say before he could even think. A satisfied smile played on Cassandra's lips. She gently pushed him back, still holding the tie, and forced him to sit in a nearby chair. Liam watched the madwoman warily, having no idea what she would do next. As expected, she moved. She placed a knee on his thigh, bracing her slender arms on the back of the chair on either side of his head. "You look very handsome like this," she said, her eyes glinting with an unreadable light. She wasn't stingy with her praise. "I like it." It was rare to get a compliment from her. If only it hadn't been followed by that possessive tone. "Mrs. Thorne picked it out," Liam explained honestly. "I'm not very good at choosing clothes." As he spoke, Cassandra's hand began to wander, tracing a path from his collar down to the second button of his pristine white shirt. "Don't worry. I'll pick them for you from now on," she purred, her hand hovering between the buttons. She continued down until her fingers reached the last one. Her hand was stopped by his. "The door isn't closed," he reminded her. He was in someone else's house. He didn't want to do this in front of her parents. Cassandra glanced down at his hand, his knuckles white as he gripped her wrist, and a slow, wicked smile spread across her face. "So what?" Liam was speechless. He met her utterly shameless gaze, took a deep breath, and glanced at the two shadows flickering in the crack of the door. "It's not appropriate." Outside the dressing room. "Riley, are you serious? Your sister likes Liam," Catherine whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Could it be any more obvious? Riley wiped a bead of sweat from her forehead, her heart still pounding. "My sister and Liam have known each other for a while. I only joined that show because I was curious." She let out a shaky breath. "Thank God you didn't try to set us up just now, Mom. I would have been dead." Catherine, recovering from her shock, had a sudden realization. "No wonder your father and I both thought Liam and your sister seemed like a good match. Our sixth sense was right on the money." Riley breathed a sigh of relief. But a new question popped into her head. "Wait, Mom, did you and Dad find out about Liam from the show?" "We did." Catherine nodded, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Your father was furious at the time. He was going on about having Liam kidnapped." "Ha!" Riley rolled her eyes. "Honestly, my sister and I aren't children anymore. What's there to be so angry about?" Then another thought struck her. "So that means, back then, you and Dad didn't even know Liam was a Landon, and you were okay with it? What's the big deal?" Catherine laughed. "Your father and I aren't fossils. The Thorne family has a solid foundation. You girls can do whatever you want." As long as you find someone you like, you should go after them with everything you've got. We won't stand in your way. This was the first time Riley had heard her mother talk like this. She'd been afraid they would hold Liam's initial status against him, especially since he was the one her sister had chosen. Though Cassandra rarely spoke to their parents, the family was surprisingly harmonious. It would have been terrible if Liam caused a rift. I never knew you could be so serious about important things, Mom, Riley said, touched. You underestimate your mother, Catherine said, smiling as she stroked Riley's hair. Just then, Riley's attention shifted back to the room. She put a finger to her lips, shot her mother a playful wink, and whispered, Mom. Catherine got the message instantly. The two of them crouched down, pressing their faces to the crack in the door to peek inside. In the room, Cassandra was leaning over, her back to the door, her body bent over the chair where Liam was sitting. They couldn't see their expressions, but their movements were in full view. Hiss! Riley sucked in a breath, covering her mouth. That's my sister for you, she whispered in awe. Those moves? Catherine, her eyes wide with excitement, gave Riley a light smack on the arm. That's how it's done. You have to tease a boy. You should be taking notes. No way. I'm all about being cute. Inside the dressing room, Cassandra met Liam's gaze, her eyes sharp enough to see right through him. She gave him no room to breathe, pressing closer. What's not appropriate? She murmured, tilting her head slightly. Her eyes flickered toward the crack in the door, and a twisted, greedy smile touched her lips. I want them to know that you are mine. Her movement forced his gaze to lock with hers. She stared down at him, her eyes dark and heavy with an undisguised, scorching desire. The familiar scent of roses enveloped him, and Liam's throat went dry. The last thread of his composure was about to snap. They know. Now what? He asked, his voice hoarse, trying to maintain a semblance of calm. Now, I'll hide you away, she whispered, a manic glint in her eyes. Lock you up where only I can see you. The sheer force of her possessiveness left him speechless. You're a lunatic, he muttered. This time, she didn't get angry. Instead, a wicked smile played on her lips, and the heat in her eyes intensified. Yes, I'm a lunatic. She paused, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. What? You don't like it? Liam looked up, about to answer. We saw the two heads bobbing in the doorway. He raised an eyebrow. They're listening, he said under his breath. That seemed to cross a line for her. The playful fire in her eyes vanished, replaced by a cold annoyance. She let go of his tie, stood up straight, and with her back still to the door, asked coldly, enjoying the show. Caught. Riley was about to grab her mother and run. But Catherine, completely unfazed, simply pushed the door wide open. As if she hadn't seen a thing, Catherine smiled brightly. Cassie, darling, your father is almost home. Riley and I were just coming to get you for dinner. Right. Sis, Dad coming home, we should go down. Riley chimed in, frantically signaling to Liam with her eyes to play along. But Cassandra caught the gesture. Riley, she said, her voice dangerously low, control your eyes. Yes. Riley immediately stood up straight. Let's go. It's time to eat, Cassandra said, giving Liam one last look before striding out of the room. Riley scurried after her, pulling Catherine along. Catherine, her smile never fading, watched Liam with a look of profound satisfaction as he stood up. Liam, dear, you should have told us sooner. Annie almost made a terrible mistake. Liam's mouth twitched. A mistake? He looked at Riley as they all got into the elevator, and it suddenly clicked. The engagement they were talking about earlier. They thought it was for him and Riley. A cold sweat trickled down his back. He instinctively glanced at Cassandra, who looked as impassive as ever, and breathed a silent sigh of relief. Thank God that misunderstanding was cleared up. Given Cassandra's temperament, all his efforts to survive would have been for nothing. They arrived at the dining room, and Cassandra naturally took her seat as a servant pulled out her chair. Liam, intending to sit as far away as possible, was gently but firmly pushed by Catherine into the seat right next to her. The four of them had just sat down when the sound of a car horn echoed from outside. Riley jumped up, using the excuse of greeting her father to escape. Catherine followed close behind. Suddenly, Liam was alone with Cassandra, surrounded by the quiet bustling of the staff. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Liam stared at his plate, trying to figure out how he was going to tell her parents he had no feelings for their daughter. He had to say it, sooner or later. Two people who weren't in love could never be happy together. Cassandra, meanwhile, simply watched him, her expression unreadable. A few moments later, Catherine and Riley returned, with Caleb trailing behind them. He looked at Liam with a flicker of surprise. As everyone took their seats and the servants began to serve the meal, Riley nervously traced patterns on the tablecloth with her fork. Catherine wore a giddy, matchmaker smile, her eyes darting between Liam and Cassandra. Caleb watched Liam for a few seconds, then cleared his throat, breaking the charged silence. So, Liam, how did you and Cassandra meet? It was the same question from lunch, posed as if it were a casual conversation starter. Liam had his answer ready, but before he could speak, Cassandra's voice cut through the air, sharp and clear. I found him. Found. A good find. Caleb almost fumbled his words. He beamed at them. That just proves it. You two are destined for each other. Isn't it the truth? Catherine chimed in with a laugh. Riley was just telling me that Liam has been staying at Black Lake Manor for a while now. Right, Liam? She winked at him. Cough, cough. Liam had just taken a sip of water to ease the tension, and Catherine's words made him choke. So they knew. They knew that he and Cassandra had already. Sensing his discomfort, Caleb waved a dismissive hand. You're both adults. Liam and Cassandra can make their own decisions. We won't interfere in that. Right. Catherine nodded eagerly. Riley looked up with a doe-eyed expression. I'm an adult too. Adults are talking. Children should be quiet, Caleb scolded. Riley clamped her mouth shut, muttering under her breath. Such a double standard. Caleb's attention returned to Liam and Cassandra. Let's see, age-wise, Liam is a few months older than Cassandra. It's about that time, isn't it, honey? Yes, about time. It's perfect. The two of them will have so much to talk about. Catherine agreed enthusiastically. They went back and forth, practically planning the wedding right there at the table. Cassandra remained perfectly composed, elegantly selecting food from the dishes before her. Liam, however, was starting to squirm. Uncle Caleb. But before he could get the words out, Caleb cut him off. Liam, whatever you have to say can wait until after dinner. Let's not talk about it now. But your uncle told you to eat. So eat. We'll talk later. Catherine added. Liam met Caleb's gaze and saw a knowing look in his eyes, as if he could see right through him. He sighed. There was nothing to do but eat. Thankfully, the rest of the meal passed without any more talk of marriage. By the end of it, Liam was finally starting to relax. Cassandra, come with me for a moment, Caleb said, finishing his tea and standing up. He then turned to Liam. Liam, you can head back to your room for a bit. I need to have a word with you later, too. Liam was desperate for a chance to speak with Caleb alone. He nodded and followed a maid back to his guest room. In the study, the two of them sat on the sofa. The playful atmosphere from dinner was gone. Caleb looked at Cassandra, his expression serious. Cassandra, tell me the truth. Do you like Liam? The cool, arrogant mask Cassandra always wore cracked. Her father's question, so direct and unexpected, sent a flicker of panic across her face. I like him. Her voice wavered for a split second, but Caleb, who knew his daughter better than anyone, already had his answer. Still, he maintained a stern expression, his gaze fixed on her. It was rare for her father to speak to her with such gravity outside of work. Cassandra knew he was serious, and because of that, a profound unease settled over her. At the dinner table, her parents' performance had been flawless, a perfectly coordinated act. But she knew that was all for show. The real conversation, the one that mattered, was happening now. Is he going to forbid it? No. If he tried to stop her from being with Liam, she wouldn't hesitate to seize whatever power she needed to defy him. Facing her father's unyielding stare, Cassandra narrowed her eyes. What is the meaning of this question? The danger radiating from her was palpable, but Caleb didn't flinch. And what if I don't approve? He asked, his voice hard. So that's it. Cassandra's jaw tightened. He is mine, she said, her voice low and fierce. And I am your father. Caleb shot back, his voice rising. Are you going to defy your parents? Become a disgrace that the whole world will laugh at? In private, her father was always gentle with her and Riley. Even when he treated them differently, it was always a clear line between work and family. She rarely spoke to her parents at length, but she understood them. She just didn't like wasting words. But now, he was furious, an anger she had never witnessed before. She was stunned. After a moment, she lowered her eyes, her jaw clenched. I wouldn't dare. It's not that you wouldn't dare. You would defy your own parents for a man. Does our family, everything we've built for you, mean nothing? His roar echoed through the study, thick with disappointment. For a man, for Liam, his face flashed in her mind, his defiant posture, his careless freedom. Riding horses with her by the sea. The fireworks he'd set off for her, lighting up the entire night sky. If he were to finally be free, if he no longer belonged to her, if he were to disappear from her world, the thought was a venom that spread through her, a wave of uncontrollable panic. She had never once considered a world without Liam by her side. The sudden possibility of it was a suffocating, crushing weight on her heart. It felt as if she had been plunged into a dark abyss with no escape. No, I won't allow it. She jerked her head up, her eyes blazing like a cornered beast fighting its chains. She met her father's gaze, her voice a low, cold snarl. What will it take for you to agree? Caleb raised an eyebrow at her barely concealed fury, but his voice remained stern. Hand over control of Zenith Corp. He was trying to strip her of her power. For a moment, Cassandra was caught in an impossible dilemma. Ever since she came of age, control of the company had been in her hands. Her father had handed it over and promptly left with her mother to travel the world. It was she who had consolidated the family's power, she who had maintained their position at the apex. And now, he was forcing her to choose between that power and Liam. The thought of Liam leaving her was a physical pain, a tearing in her chest she had never experienced before. It was so intense she could barely breathe. He cannot leave. As for the company, even if he took it back, she could always reclaim it. All the dissenters in the family were long gone. Who else but her could possibly run it? As if her reason had been wiped clean, Cassandra's eyes turned bloodshot. Fine, she said, her voice flat. I agree. Then, a cold, empty smile touched her lips. She looked at her father, her expression unreadable. Consider my payment for raising me all these years. She stared him down, a chilling certainty in her eyes. And at that moment, Caleb's furious expression melted away, replaced by a sudden, broad smile. He looked at his daughter, his eyes filled with pride and relief. The shift was so abrupt it caught Cassandra completely off guard. What? What are you smiling about? She stammered. Silly girl, Caleb said, shaking his head, his voice softening. When would I ever force you to do something you don't want to do? Especially something that would break her. He looked at her with such gentle affection it made her skin crawl. His gaze turned distant, full of a wistful hope. That incident was so long ago. You should try trusting your father again. But Cassandra's lips remained a thin, tight line. She stared at him, ignoring his words, and demanded, What is it you really want? The hope in Caleb's eyes faded to disappointment. He didn't press the point. Instead, he smiled again, his voice firm. You like Liam? Cassandra's eyes darted away, but her father pressed on. Admit it, Cassandra. You like him. Your subconscious reactions don't lie. His words came out in a smooth, continuous flow, but to Cassandra, they landed one by one like hammer blows. Is it that obvious? She unconsciously touched her cheek, a flicker of confusion in her cold eyes. Caleb, who had seen it all, sighed with a smile. You don't want him to leave you, do you? He asked again. Subconsciously, Cassandra nodded. You want him by your side always, right? Yes. You can't accept the fact that he might leave, can you? Yes. So you like him, don't you? Yes. She followed his lead, nodding along to each question. But as she answered the last one, she suddenly realized what she was saying. No, I just want him to stay with me. Her words came out in a stutter, a rare moment of vulnerability. But when she looked up and saw the growing smile on her father's face, she instinctively clutched her chest. Her heart was pounding violently. An uncontrollable reel of images played in her mind. His eyes, his lips, his everything, exploding like fireworks in the countless wild nights they had shared, a spark on the dry tinder of her heart. A slow, languid smile curved her lips, and her eyes shimmered with an endless, consuming affection. She looked straight at her father and used a name she hadn't used in years. Yes, Dad. She sat perfectly straight, her gaze unwavering and firm. Across from her, a rare, genuine smile of relief spread across Caleb's face. Seeing that smile, Cassandra realized it had all been a test. She lowered her gaze, a faint smile of her own touching her lips. Dad, this is what you wanted to talk about, wasn't it? Caleb nodded, his eyes shining with pride. Cassandra, you've grown up. To see his daughter finally in love, and with the son of his fallen brother in arms. As a father, he couldn't be more satisfied. But, Cassandra, Caleb's tone shifted, becoming gentle. Even though you like Liam, you need to be more temperate with your feelings. She didn't understand. A flicker of confusion crossed her face. What do you mean? In a relationship, it's not good for either side to be too domineering. Love is about equality, about reciprocity, Caleb said, his gaze deepening as if he were speaking from long experience. No. Cassandra shook her head stubbornly, rejecting his words without a second thought. To like something is to possess it, she declared, her voice hard. Dad, you're the one who told me that if I want something, I have to fight for it, even if it costs me my life. As she spoke, the possessive fire in her eyes burned even brighter. She saw Liam not as a person, but as a treasured object to be seized, to be hidden away. Her claws and fangs were on full display, her predatory instincts at their peak, like a beast that had tasted blood. Caleb saw it all clearly. He sighed and looked at his daughter with a deep, sad understanding. Cassandra, if you act like this, you'll only push him further away. No one likes to be forced. No, she retorted, her eyes turning a feverish red, her reason all but gone. I will give him everything I have. Whatever he wants, even if it's the entire world, I will fight for it. I will spend my entire life making him love me. Caleb saw it with perfect clarity. His daughter didn't just like Liam. She was in love with him. And while he was thrilled, he knew that if he let her run wild, her destructive nature would only drive Liam further away. He couldn't let that happen. He didn't meddle in her business affairs. Some things required a heavy hand. But this was different. This was love. Two people who didn't love each other could never have a happy ending. And if you knew the ending was going to be a disaster, why would you even bother with the journey? It seemed he would have to intervene. Caleb took a deep breath. Do you trust your father? Of course, Cassandra answered without hesitation. In all her years, her family was the only thing she had ever trusted unconditionally. Her answer brought a film of moisture to Caleb's eyes. His daughter had never opened up to him like this before. Liam's appearance had been perfectly timed. Caleb cleared his throat, his expression serious again. Then can you promise me one thing? Name it. Give up the power you hold. Pursue him simply as yourself. Seeing the flicker of protest in her eyes, he quickly added, just try it. See what happens. I admire Liam, too. Dad won't lead you astray. His words sank in. Give up her power? Did her father mean her status as the heir to the Thorn fortune? She didn't understand. Caleb explained, don't use your usual methods to force him. Pursue him openly, honestly. Let go and just chase him. Like that. Cassandra's eyes were full of doubt. Yes, Caleb nodded, his voice earnest. You need to make him feel your respect. If you do that, he will slowly start to see you differently. Respect. It was a word she had never considered. She had worked so hard to keep Liam by her side, but no matter what she did, the look in his eyes was never the one she wanted. It was a source of frustration, of confusion. She didn't know how to get what she so desperately craved. Maybe her father's way could work. She bit her lip, silent for a long moment. Then, with a firm, heavy nod, she spoke. All right, I promise. Leaving the study, Cassandra came face to face with Liam, who was on his way to see her father. She gave him a deep, long look, but for the first time, she did nothing. No threats, no possessive gestures. She just walked past him, her hands hidden at her sides, trembling. Liam had just stepped out of the elevator when he saw her. He had braced himself for another one of her insane acts, but she just brushed past him like a stranger. He frowned. For a split second, a sharp, undeniable pang of disappointment shot through him. The feeling was so unexpected it shocked him. Impossible, he thought. What am I disappointed about? Isn't this exactly what I wanted? An ending where we're strangers. He hadn't even found himself yet. Why did he have to like anyone? Especially a lunatic. No. He couldn't possibly like a lunatic. It was a mistake. He would never forget the inhuman torment she had put him through. Don't fall for anyone so easily. You idiot. He silently reminded himself as he stood before the study door, a wry, self-deprecating smile on his lips. In this world, no one was indispensable. Everything was just a transaction, wasn't it? Don't be a fool. Being a fool only leads to more misery. Love was unreliable. Sincerity was the most worthless currency of all. His expression hardened. He placed his hand on the doorknob, closed his eyes, and took a deep, cleansing breath. When he opened them again, his gaze was clear and calm. He pushed the door open. Liam, you're here? Caleb's voice came from inside. He smiled and waved him over. Come, sit down. Thank you, Uncle Caleb. Liam nodded respectfully, his demeanor composed as he walked over and sat on the sofa, his expression serious. Caleb gestured to a servant, who stepped forward and poured Liam a cup of tea. Then, he said, You may leave us. The servant bowed and left, closing the door softly behind her.